Imagine this. You're floating above an ocean so vast it could swallow continents, an endless shimmer of blue that hides the greatest mystery on Earth. The air is still, the horizon blurs, and the water below seems to call with a slow, rhythmic whisper. Tonight, we follow that call downward. Hey guys. Tonight we're descending together into the Mariana Trench, the deepest point known to humankind. This is not just a dive into water, but into time itself, where light vanishes, pressure reshapes reality, and silence becomes almost holy. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening right now, wherever you are in the world, leave a comment telling me your location and your local time. It's always amazing to see where all of you are drifting from each of us, falling asleep under the same sky, connected by this quiet curiosity. Now, if you're ready, let's begin. At first, the ocean feels familiar. You can still see the light rippling above, sunlight filtering through the waves in gold and green streaks. Tiny fish shimmer past like flecks of living silver, their scales catching the day's last glow. The sound of the world still lingers here, the hum of waves, the rhythm of your breath, the slow creak of the vessel as it begins to sink. Within minutes, the surface becomes a memory. Light fades from blue to dark indigo, like a curtain slowly being drawn. The water cools, the air thickens. The vastness above closes over you, and what lies below is an entire planet most eyes have never seen. The descent begins gently, like falling through midnight air. Each meter deeper brings a small shift in sound, in color, in gravity itself. You can feel the weight of the sea pressing against the hull, 6,000 pounds per square inch for every 10,000 meters. Yet inside, it's calm. The hum of machinery blends with your breathing, steady, patient, hypnotic. Outside the glass, the last traces of sunlight vanish. What remains is blue so deep, it borders on black. Here, the human mind starts to imagine things, shapes in the dark, slow glimmers of movement, the pulse of something vast drifting in the unseen distance. You might think of space, but space feels empty. The ocean is full dense, alive, heavy with mystery. As we pass 1,000 meters, light fades completely. The ocean has taken us into its twilight zone, the mesopelagic, where day never truly arrives. Around us, life changes form. Creatures here have evolved their own lanterns, tiny living stars that blink and drift, turning darkness into constellations. A jellyfish glows like a suspended moon. A small fish flickers, then disappears, its body invisible until it chooses to shine. You realize that light down here is no longer something given. It is something created. The deeper you go, the more the ocean begins to feel like a dream. Your sense of distance dissolves. Up and down no longer matter. The body relaxes, the mind drifts. The pressure outside is enough to crush steel, yet you are untouched, floating in a pocket of fragile air, surrounded by liquid weight. Every few hundred meters, the temperature drops until it hovers near freezing. Yet there is life, tiny, slow, almost patient in its movements. Transparent shrimp drift like glass. A pale squid passes by, its eyes enormous, adapted to gather the faintest photon. Even the silence feels alive here, humming faintly with the low-frequency rumble of distant earthquakes, the groaning of tectonic plates sliding beneath the Pacific floor. We're not just moving through water, we're moving through layers of history. The trench beneath us formed millions of years ago, when the Pacific plate collided with the Philippine plate, forcing one deep beneath the other. That collision carved a scar into Earth's crust, an 11-kilometer chasm deeper than Mount Everest is tall. As we sink along its invisible walls, it's as if we're drifting through time's oldest memory, a wound that never healed, still pulling the ocean toward its heart. The lights from the submersible cast pale cones into the dark. Each particle of sediment glows for a moment, then fades behind us, like stardust falling through water. You begin to notice how strange this feels. The deeper you go, the quieter it becomes. Not just the absence of sound, but the presence of silence itself. A silence so thick it feels like velvet pressed against your thoughts. It's easy to forget that we're still on Earth. The atmosphere of the deep feels otherworldly, a hidden planet that begins just a few miles below the one we know. And within that hidden planet, new laws apply. Pressure turns gases into liquids. Light bends and dies. Colors lose meaning. Here, the universe begins again from zero. And yet, there's peace in that reset. Imagine the surface world fading away. No cities, no clocks, no boundaries. Just the slow pulse of the sea and your own heartbeat matching it. Down here, time seems to pause, not out of stillness, but because nothing rushes. Every movement is deliberate, every flicker of life carefully measured against the weight of the abyss. We reach 2,000 meters. The instruments hum softly. The temperature outside, 2 degrees Celsius. The light of the vessel feels warm, golden, almost human, in contrast to the infinite cold beyond. And you can sense it, the ocean watching, vast and indifferent, yet strangely welcoming, like a cathedral that has always been waiting for someone to listen. Somewhere above, the surface waves crash and break, unseen and forgotten. But here, motion is slow, eternal. A particle of dust from a distant continent may take a century to drift this far. A sound once made may echo for miles before fading. The ocean, in its depth, teaches patience, the kind that life itself was born from. We are now within the upper edge of the abyssal zone. Below us lies the true trench, a darkness so complete that light itself becomes memory. There is still further to go, but for now, we drift here halfway between worlds, weightless in the dark. If you listen closely, you might imagine the sea whispering tiny bubbles, rising, shifting, merging. A language without words, spoken in pressure and silence. That's where we'll pause tonight, at the edge of the abyss, where the last threads of sunlight have died and the mind begins to surrender to stillness. Let your breathing match the rhythm of the deep, slow, measured, infinite. Tomorrow, we'll continue the journey downward. For now, just rest. The descent continues, steady and slow, through a darkness that feels more like a color than an absence. Above us, the last ribbons of blue have vanished completely. Around us, the water turns to ink, an ancient fluid pressing from every side. This is the twilight zone, the space between light and eternal night. The instruments mark 1,000 meters. The pressure outside the submersible is now nearly 100 times greater than the air you breathe on the surface. Yet in this crushing black, life has found a way to shimmer. Tiny sparks drift by the window, bioluminescent creatures lighting themselves in the deep. Some glow softly like embers in the dark, others flicker like distant stars. They pulse in strange rhythms, patterns of blue, green, and ghostly white. It's as if the ocean, denied sunlight, has learned to paint its own constellations. Imagine drifting through a sky turned upside down, where the stars are alive and swimming. A small jellyfish passes, trailing tendrils that pulse with electric veins. Its light brightens, then dims, a heartbeat in the void. A moment later, it vanishes into the black, leaving behind only memory. This light show is not for beauty. Each flash, each pulse, is a signal, communication, camouflage, or lure. Down here, bioluminescence is the language of survival. Some creatures glow to attract prey, others to warn predators away. A few, like the anglerfish, carry a living lantern dangling from their heads, swaying gently like a baited trap. When an unsuspecting fish swims close, the light snaps out and jaws close in the dark. Even in the abyss, nature has imagination. The walls of the trench slope inward, invisible in the dark, but you can feel their presence. Occasionally, the sonar pings a slow, hollow echo that seems to come from everywhere at once. The sound rolls through the hull like a sigh. Each ping marks distance, shape, depth, tiny ripples of human awareness reaching into the unknowable. You begin to realize how little light has ever touched this world. Scientists say that even the brightest sunlight can only reach about 200 meters below the surface. Beyond that, it fades to gray. By the time we reach 1,000 meters, light is gone entirely. No human eye can see unaided here. And yet, every year, new species are discovered in these depths, creatures so adapted to darkness that light itself would feel alien to them. Some have eyes that have grown to impossible size, gathering the faintest glimmers of bioluminescence. Others have lost their eyes altogether, evolving into blindness as a kind of peace. In this quiet empire of darkness, survival belongs not to the strongest, but to the most patient. Outside, the water temperature hovers just above freezing. Every movement is slow, every heartbeat economical. The trench is a place that has taught life to do more, with less, to glow without fire, to see without light, to exist without warmth. The flashlight beam cuts across the blackness and lands on something unexpected, a translucent creature, drifting like silk, nearly invisible until it moves. Its body is a ribbon of glass, long and curling, with a faint trail of light along its edges. It's called a siphonophore, a colony made of hundreds of tiny individuals acting as one being. Each section performs a role. Some swim, some feed, others glow or reproduce. Together they form a single shimmering strand that can reach lengths of over 100 feet. The sight is mesmerizing, like watching a living thread weave through the ocean's dreams. It reminds you of something human: cooperation. The way millions of individuals can become one civilization, one system, one heartbeat. Down here, that lesson has existed for millions of years before us. Further below, the trench grows colder. The sub's lights pierce the dark like twin suns, but the distance always wins. The beam fades, swallowed by the void, before it can reach a wall. The pressure outside now exceeds 1,000 atmospheres. Imagine the weight of 50 jumbo jets pressing on your body at once, and you'll only begin to understand the crushing stillness that reigns here. Yet there's no destruction, only balance. Every creature that lives here is shaped by that weight, soft, boneless, fluid. Rigid forms break, flexible ones endure. You think of how life itself behaves this way, yielding when pressed, bending to survive. Perhaps the abyss is not hostile, just honest. It rewards those who listen to its rhythm. At 2,000 meters, the sensors pick up faint tremors. The seafloor shifts in slow motion, releasing vibrations through the water. These are not earthquakes as we know them, but the low rumblings of tectonic plates locked in an eternal conversation. Every few centuries, that conversation grows louder, and the ocean floor moves by inches, reshaping the trench. Even here, where everything seems still, the planet breathes. The microphone captures distant clicks, unknown creatures signaling through pressure waves. No melody, no pattern, only a scattered Morse code of existence. To the ear, it sounds like rain on metal. To the imagination, it feels like language. Perhaps the deep is whispering not in words, but in presence. As the submersible drifts deeper, you notice the way your thoughts slow, as if matching the pace of the sea. The outside world, its noise, its urgency feels impossibly far away. In its place comes something simpler: the rhythm of breath, the pulse of the engines, and the gentle awareness that you are surrounded by millions of tons of water and yet perfectly safe. This is the paradox of the deep. It is both terrifying and soothing. The same darkness that could crush also cradles. The same silence that isolates also comforts. It's easy to see why some explorers describe the abyss as spiritual, a cathedral made not of stone, but of silence and weight. If the ocean has a soul, it resides here, in the twilight zone. Outside the window, the lights catch a swirl of snow-like particles, drifting downward tiny flakes of plankton, dust, and organic fragments. Scientists call this marine snow. It falls continuously, gently feeding the life below. Each particle is a record of the surface world of sunlight, wind, and movement, slowly sinking to rest in the quiet below. It's humbling to realize that even the deepest life depends on the shallowest, that the dance of light above sustains the darkness beneath. The ocean, like existence itself, is a single organism breathing in layers. The instruments show 3,000 meters now. The twilight zone is ending. Ahead lies a world of true night, the abyssal plain, where light has never existed, where time seems suspended. But before we pass through that threshold, pause for a moment. Listen to the hum of the engines, to the steady thrum of your heartbeat. Imagine the countless lives drifting unseen around you, each one fragile, luminous, miraculous. This is the heart of the twilight zone, the place where the last rays of the sun dissolve into dreams. Let yourself drift there for a while, weightless, quiet, safe. The deeper we go, the calmer it becomes. The descent has now carried us far beyond the reach of light. Outside, the ocean is not merely dark, it is absolute, consuming, infinite. The sensors flicker with steady calm. The pressure gauges climb past 4,000 meters. Every square inch of the vessel's hull now bears the weight of a small car pressing inward. And yet, inside, it feels peaceful. You can almost hear your own heartbeat sinking with the slow rhythm of the sea. This is the realm where physics bends to endurance. The rules we know above the surface dissolve down here, replaced by strange equations of pressure and stillness. Steel and glass would collapse instantly without the delicate balance of air within. The hull creaks softly, like a whisper from the deep, reminding you how fragile life really is and how astonishing that it survives at all. At this depth, the world outside looks empty, but it is anything but. Shadows move with purpose. Creatures glide through the dark with bodies that seem part solid, part smoke. One passes close to the viewport, a translucent fish with eyes like mirrors. Its body ripples with faint light as it turns, and for a second, you glimpse its heart beating in the open water before it fades back into the abyss. In the trench, transparency is protection. To survive the darkness, you must become it. The submersible hums like a distant organ, each vibration swallowed by the vast pressure outside. You can sense the strain on every bolt, every seal. At 5,000 meters, the water's weight reaches 7,000 tons per square meter. It's the kind of pressure that would crush submarines from earlier eras into fragments. And yet, the life outside floats effortlessly, as if gravity forgot them. Some of the creatures here have no bones at all, their bodies soft, gelatinous, flexible. Others, like the snailfish, have evolved skeletons made partly of cartilage, allowing them to withstand forces that would destroy almost anything else on Earth. Their organs are stabilized by special molecules called piezolites, nature's way of keeping proteins from collapsing under pressure. Everything here is designed not to fight the abyss, but to yield to it. There is a kind of wisdom in that a lesson that resistance is not the only way to endure. A gentle vibration moves through the hull. It's the echo of the trench itself, a deep, low tremor traveling through the planet's crust. The Mariana Trench lies at the boundary of two tectonic plates, the Pacific Plate sliding beneath the Philippine Plate. Every few seconds, the plates shift by fractions of a millimeter, groaning like ancient doors under unimaginable weight. You can't see it, but this movement is constant, the slow breathing of the planet. Mountains rise and fall, valleys deepen, new layers of seafloor slide into the molten mantle below. The entire landscape is in motion, but the timescale is too vast for human eyes. What we call stillness is just movement too slow to see. It feels humbling, drifting here, like sitting inside the heartbeat of Earth. At 6,000 meters, the floodlights illuminate a sloping wall of sediment and basalt. The beam glides over strange ridges, pillars, and scars that seem almost sculpted. This is the trench wall, the side of a mountain turned upside down. Each ridge marks an ancient earthquake. Each groove holds dust that has settled here for millions of years. Occasionally, a small flash appears, the reflection of an amphipod, a tiny crustacean no larger than a fingernail. They dart like sparks in the void, feeding on the rain of detritus drifting from above. In the crushing depths, even dust becomes treasure. And then, for a moment, you notice the most delicate motion. A gelatinous creature, swirling gently upward, shaped like a bell, glowing faintly at its rim. Scientists call it a deep-sea comb jelly. Its cilia shimmer like strings of a harp, refracting the sub's light into waves of blue, violet, and green. It doesn't swim so much as dream its way through the water, pulsing in slow, hypnotic rhythms. Watching it, you understand. This place is not dead. It is simply slower. Outside the windows, small white flecks drift like snow. They are the remains of the surface world, tiny particles of plankton, bones, and dust sinking endlessly downward. This is the deep ocean's quiet inheritance, a continuous snowfall called marine snow. Without it, no life could survive here. Each flake carries energy from sunlight above to the dark world below, a fragile thread linking sky and sea, life and silence. The abyss is patient. It waits centuries for this snow to fall. You can imagine a single flake beginning its descent near the surface, falling past shoals of fish and whales, through storm and current, through miles of black water, until it lands softly on the trench floor. And in that fall lies the entire story of the planet: creation, decay, renewal. Even here, 11 kilometers down, the echo of sunlight still arrives, not as light, but as memory. The pressure is now so immense that even sound behaves differently. Vibrations move faster, lower, denser. A single tap on the hull rings like a bell struck underwater. The sub's external microphones pick up faint pops and creaks the language of the deep, made of compression and release. Some scientists believe that fish and crustaceans communicate here through low-frequency rumbles that can travel for miles. The ocean, in its silence, may actually be full of whispers, vibrations too deep for us to hear. Perhaps that's what the ancients meant when they spoke of the sea as alive. It hums not in noise, but in resonance. If you close your eyes now, you can almost feel those vibrations brushing against your skin, not sound, but presence. The beam of the light catches another figure, a shape like a floating ribbon twisting gently in the water. For a heartbeat, it looks like fabric caught in wind, but then it pulses and you realize it's alive. This is the Dumbo octopus, named for the delicate fins that wave like ears as it swims. It drifts closer, curious, its body pale pink, eyes large and glassy. When it moves, it does not swim so much as glide a soft ballet in slow motion. There is something hauntingly human in its poise, as if it knows it's being watched but doesn't mind. For a moment, two worlds meet, one born of air and one of pressure, and then it vanishes again, folding into the dark as gently as a sigh. The ocean is full of such brief encounters. Down here, every life is a secret that reveals itself only once. At 8,000 meters, the walls steepen again. The trench narrows. The sensors report increasing pressure, temperature near freezing. The crew says little now. Words feel unnecessary in a place where everything speaks in silence. Outside, nothing stirs for long. Only the slow drift of particles, the faint shimmer of unknown species, and the steady hum of the earth turning. And yet, there's comfort in that repetition, in knowing that the world continues, quietly, patiently, even in the places no light will ever touch. Perhaps that's the secret of these crushing depths. They remind us that stillness can hold life, and silence can carry sound. The deep ocean is not the absence of the world, it is its foundation. We drift a little longer, suspended in the heavy peace of the abyss. Your thoughts begin to dissolve into the dark, slow and rhythmic, like waves folding into sleep. You are weightless now, a single breath floating between stars and water, between surface and core. Down here, there is no time, only depth, only the endless, patient heartbeat of the sea. The abyss around you feels eternal, but like everything in nature, it had a beginning. The Mariana Trench was not always here. Once, millions of years ago, this part of the Pacific Ocean was simply a wide plain beneath shifting seas. Then, slowly, the planet began to move. Beneath the calm surface of water, colossal slabs of the Earth's crust collided and folded. From that collision was born the deepest wound on our planet, the Mariana Trench. It began, as all great things do, in silence. Imagine the crust of the Earth as a jigsaw puzzle made of enormous plates, floating on a layer of molten rock. Some drift apart, creating oceans. Others collide, raising mountains. But where two plates meet, and one slips beneath the other, something else happens. The planet folds inward, forming a trench. The Pacific Plate, vast and heavy, has been sliding beneath the Philippine Plate for tens of millions of years. Each year, it moves only a few centimeters, about as fast as your fingernails grow. Yet, over the ages, those tiny shifts carved a scar 2,500 kilometers long and nearly 11 kilometers deep. The deepest point, known as Challenger Deep, lies farther below sea level than any mountain rises above it. If Mount Everest were dropped into the trench, its peak would still be buried under 2 kilometers of water. This is not a metaphor. It's a measure of time and patience, the slow artistry of Earth sculpting itself over eons. The walls of the trench are not smooth. They are folded and jagged, scarred by earthquakes and reshaped by pressure. Each layer of rock holds a story, an ancient eruption, a shifting plate, a storm of molten stone frozen in time. If you could cut through the wall like a slice of cake, you'd see bands of basalt and sediment stacked like pages in a book millions of years old. The lower layers were once the floor of an ancient ocean that no longer exists. The higher layers formed later, each pressed tighter by the weight above. This constant compression turns rock into something like memory dense, layered, full of secrets. Even now, the trench is growing. The Pacific Plate continues to sink, dragging seafloor into the Earth's mantle. Somewhere deep below us, molten rock swallows the old crust and recycles it, turning destruction into creation. What dies here becomes the foundation of mountains elsewhere. The ocean, like life, wastes nothing. The submersible's instruments hum faintly. Outside, the lights reveal steep cliffs rising on either side, textured like the skin of an old planet. Small rocks drift slowly downward, tumbling through the beam, before disappearing into the black. It's hard to believe that this silent landscape is the product of violence of crushing collisions, exploding magma, and quakes so vast that they once shook continents. And yet, here in the stillness, the aftermath feels tranquil. The fury that formed this world has long cooled into peace. What remains is a monument to patience, to the beauty that emerges after chaos has settled. The ocean floor at this depth is called the Hadal Zone, from the Greek word Hades, meaning the underworld. It's an apt name, a realm of darkness, pressure, and quiet eternity. Yet it's also alive, a living geology, still reshaping itself one microscopic tremor at a time. You can almost sense the pulse of the Earth here, like a giant heart beating far below. Scientists believe the trench is part of a vast system of subduction zones circling the planet like invisible stitches. They call it the Ring of Fire, a chain of volcanoes and trenches marking where the Earth renews itself. When one part sinks, another rises. The crust disappears in one place and reappears somewhere else as islands, ridges, or mountains. Without these movements, our world would be static. No continents, no oceans, no life as we know it. The same slow forces that forged the Mariana Trench also lifted the Himalayas, split the Atlantic, and shaped every coastline we see. It's strange to think that the most tranquil part of the ocean owes its existence to violence. But perhaps that's a truth shared by all creation, that serenity is often born from struggle and beauty from upheaval. As we glide along the trench wall, small geysers of sediment erupt in slow motion. It's the Earth exhaling gases rising through fissures from deep below. The camera captures faint, shimmering distortions in the water, like heat mirages. These hydrothermal vents release superheated fluid, rich with minerals, creating temporary oases where life flourishes. Here, even the planet's wounds give life. Bacteria gather near the vents, feeding on chemicals instead of sunlight. They form the base of entire ecosystems, colonies of worms, clams, and shrimp that thrive in eternal night. These creatures owe their existence not to the sun, but to the raw energy of the Earth itself. It's a reminder that life's fire doesn't only burn above the surface. It burns below, in the heart of the planet, in the chemical whispers of stone and heat. The pressure at this depth is 8 tons per square inch, enough to crush a human body into nothingness. Yet the submersible glides calmly, its walls glowing with gentle light. The boundary between safety and obliteration is just a few inches of metal and willpower. You take a breath, slow and careful. The air feels denser, though that's only in your imagination. In truth, it's your awareness expanding, a growing understanding of where you are. Few living beings have seen this place. Fewer still have lingered long enough to listen. Outside, everything moves slowly, almost reverently. The trench, for all its darkness, has a strange serenity, a silence that feels sacred. You begin to realize that the Mariana Trench is not merely a place, but a presence, a living archive of Earth's memory, a keeper of its oldest songs. Somewhere beyond the glass, an earthquake murmurs faint, deep, almost tender. The lights tremble. A plume of sediment rises like smoke, swirling through the beam. Then the ocean settles again. The silence returns, heavier and softer than before. You imagine the first time this happened, eons ago, when no eye existed to witness it. The earth shifted, mountains folded, the ocean fell into itself, and in that moment, the trench was born. It is still being born. Every second, the Pacific plate sinks a little deeper. Every heartbeat, gravity, pulls the sea a little lower. And in that motion, invisible, patient, eternal, the planet writes the story of its own becoming. So, as the lights dim and the engines quiet, let yourself drift for a moment. You are hovering above the planet's oldest wound, but it doesn't bleed, it breathes. It exhales slow clouds of mineral and gas, sings in the language of earthquakes, and waits, always, for the next piece of the world to fall gently into its arms. The birth of the trench was not an event. It was a lifelong whisper, one that continues, even now, beneath us. Listen carefully, and you might hear it, a sound like distant thunder, buried under centuries of silence. the song of creation still echoing through the deep. If the surface ocean is a rolling plain of blue, the world beneath us is a cathedral carved in secret. The Mariana system is not just a single gash in Earth's crust. It is an entire landscape of submerged mountains and valleys, terraces and scarps, cliffs and shadowed gullies, a geography so vast that even our brightest lamps can only touch it in fragments. What we call a trench is, in truth, a tapestry, an arc of islands, a forearc of folded rock, a V-shaped chasm stitched with ridges and benches, and, far to the west, a restless back arc where the seafloor splits and breathes. The sub drifts along a wall that rises like the side of a night-lit mountain. The beam reveals contoured ledges cut into the slope, steps in stone, where gravity and time have shared the work. Some are narrow and sharp, others broad and gentle, dusted with the slow, white snowfall of centuries. Between them, channels plunge like stairwells into deeper rooms of darkness. These benches are the trench's shelves, places where sediments pause before sliding again, carrying the memory of storms and bloom seasons ever downward. Look long enough, and patterns appear. The walls are not smooth. They bear the signatures of ancient motion, parallel grooves carved by debris flows, arcuate scars from small collapses, angular buttresses where harder rock resists the soft persistence of mud. Where the slope steepens, a couloir funnels grains and shells and the faintest remains of drifting life, guided by gravity into a narrow ribbon that vanishes below. The trench is a collector of fragments, of moments, of time. We cross a low saddle where the wall leans back and the lights reach farther. Here, the surface is pocked with small craters and mounded cones. Some mark old slumps where the seafloor sighed and let go. Others are subtle vents where fluids seep upward, rich with minerals. At some seeps, chemosynthetic microbes gather in thin films only a scientist could love, delicate, pale, easily missed. Elsewhere in the region, along the broader system, entire fields of chimneys rise where hot fluids meet cold seawater. But here in the trench proper, the signatures are quieter, a shimmer in the beam, a smell the instruments notice before we do, a soft crust that crunches under robotic feet if we dared to land. Beyond the wall, a spur juts out like the prow of a buried ship. Its edge falls into a shadow that the lamps cannot lift. In that darkness lie narrow ravines, anastomosing like veins, carved by turbidity currents, underwater avalanches of silt and shell that race downslope after storms or quakes. They leave behind streamlined ridges, teardrop beds, and levee-like margins that a trained eye can read as easily as river forms on land. The trench is a riverbed, flipped and drowned, flowing not with water but with weight. Our chart shows names we whisper with respect. The great abyss where pressure is king. The arc of islands far above that marks the bite of one plate into another. A scattering of deeps, each a local minimum in a world of lows. These names are waypoints in a darkness that does not care. The geography is what remains when the ocean has had its way with stone to enfold and fault, rise and collapse, have finished their negotiations and settled into a shape that looks inevitable. We skim a shoulder where the slope lessens and the mud is braided with the soft tracks of amphipods. The camera leans close, tiny prints in a powder of silt that fell from a sky that is only water. Here and there, the faint outline of a burrow mouth, a delicate dome, a collapsed ring. On one ledge, the clay has cracked in hexagons where it dried once in the thin warmth of a vent and later cooled, leaving a pattern like old paint. Look closer, and you see threads, filaments where microbes have glued grains together, making architecture from dust. Even the smallest forms mirror the largest. The way a filament binds silt is how a ridge arrests a landslide. The way a rivulet meanders across a bench is how a canyon searches its path to the deepest floor. The trench is geometry, nested inside geometry, from the scale of breadths to the span of continents. The wall steepens again and becomes an amphitheater, its arcs bitten from the slope as if by careful teeth. Below, a fan of paler sediment spreads like a skirt at the base, the deposit of some long-ago fall that must have sounded to stone like thunder. In the light, tiny shells sparkle. Some are the fragile homes of foraminifera, others the porcelain splinters of distant plankton, fallen through miles of black to rest here in a hush. Each tells of a day that happened far above, of wind and wave and sun now preserved as a dusting on the floor of night. The amphitheater's rim is scalloped, and from each notch a narrow chute descends. We peer down one. Its walls are striated, polish on the convex side where grains have slid and abraded, rough on the lee side where eddies have laid them back down. The chute widens into a tongue that merges with the fan, a handwriting of gravity curling in graceful strokes. If you could speed time, you would see this whole amphitheater breathe shelves, shedding, channels, carving, fans advancing each cycle, a heartbeat measured in centuries. Farther along, the rock changes. Basalt gives way to serpentinized masses, green-black under the light, slick as if oiled. Here, ancient mantle rock has been altered by seawater under pressure, releasing hydrogen and other gases that seep toward the surface. The slope is studded with low domes, mud volcanoes, born not from heat alone, but from chemistry and squeeze. Their flanks are filigreed with fragile runnels. At their crowns, pale patches suggest microbial veneers feeding on gases from below. Even here, geology is generous. Where rock speaks, life listens. We pass a fracture zone, a rectilinear cut that runs against the grain of the slope, as if someone drew a straight line through folded fabric. Its edges are sharp, its floor littered with blocks, rotated slightly out of place. The sub's light grazes the edges and throws shadows like teeth. Faults like this partition the trench into compartments. Some hold thicker sediments, some are bare to bedrock, some cradle small ponds of fine silt that puff like smoke when disturbed, settling again in minutes, as if inhaling and exhaling the disturbance back into stillness. The floor beyond is not a simple V, but a complex mosaic low ridges parallel to the axis, subtle terraces where the bottom hesitates, rises, then drops again, like a breath catching. This Haddle Plain, as some call it, is not truly plain at all. It is a document constantly overwritten. Fresh drapes of marine snow, faint cross, hatching from bottom currents, crescent scours from rolling clasts set loose by a distant tremor. The currents here are gentle but relentless, moving grains a hair's breadth at a time, teaching patience to everything they touch. The compass points into a narrow meander, the trench's axis bending like a river around a buried promontory. Why does stone curve like this at such depth? Because plates are not paper, they are living sheets stressed and relaxed in long pulses. Where compressions differ, the trench kinks. Where buoyancy shifts, it turns. Even at the scale of hundreds of kilometers, the world follows the same rules a stream does around a boulder. It finds the path of least resistance, then writes it into memory. Here and there, we glimpse the wreckage of the surface world, a length of cable softened by drifts, a panel of metal colonized by filaments, a scrap of plastic that should never have learned the word Hadal. Geography is honest. It keeps what falls to it. The trench accepts our offerings without judgment and files them alongside shells and dust. The saddest truth is also the simplest. The map of the deep now includes us. And yet, for all our presence, we are still guests. The hidden geography remains itself patient, careful, inexhaustibly subtle. Stand a human on a mountain and you see dominion. Float a lamp in this dark and you learn humility. The trench's shapes are not for us, but they allow us to pass. We idle the thrusters and let the sub hover above a broad bench. The lights reveal only a slice, but the mind completes the scene. Terraces stepping down into night, ravines stitching them together, fans breathing outward, domes quietly exhaling, faults creating order from stress. Above all, a sense of weight and time, the two tools the ocean uses to sculpt its most private rooms. Close your eyes and trace the contours in your mind. Picture the mountain that is upside down, its summit the deepest point, its ridges the walls we follow, its valleys the paths we dare to take. Imagine the snow that never melts, falling forever. Imagine a river that moves once a decade, yet never forgets where it is going. This is the trench's hidden geography. Not just shapes in the dark, but the slow grammar by which the ocean writes. Let your breath match that grammar, long, quiet, and sure. We'll follow the axis deeper soon, where maps thin out and the seafloor becomes a whisper. For now, rest with the contours. Let them hold you. Before satellites could map the world, before submarines could dive beyond the reach of light, the Mariana Trench was nothing more than a rumor whispered among sailors. They called it the Devil's Deep, the bottomless sea, or the edge of the world. For centuries, humanity looked at the ocean and saw mystery a surface that hid infinity. Our story of exploration begins not with machines, but with sound. In 1875, the British ship HMS Challenger set out on the first great scientific voyage to study the world's oceans. The crew lowered weighted lines, simple ropes tipped with lead, and counted the knots as they sank. Somewhere in the western Pacific, near Guam, one of those lines kept going down and down and down. When they finally hauled it up, it measured nearly 8,200 meters. The sailors stood on deck, stunned. They had found the deepest place ever recorded. They named it Challenger Deep, after the ship itself, though they could never imagine what truly lay below. It was the 19th century's version of touching the stars, a discovery not of sight, but of depth. Decades passed, and technology caught up with curiosity. In the early 20th century, ships began using echo-sounding pulses of sound, sent down to measure how long it took for the echo to return. These echoes became the first whispers from the abyss. Each ping that bounced back told of unseen valleys and ridges. For the first time, scientists could see without light. They mapped the trench as a narrow crescent 2,500 kilometers long, shaped like a smile turned downward. The sound waves revealed mountains rising from the seafloor and canyons descending even deeper, a world folded within itself. But sound is not only a tool, it's a conversation. Every ping answered by the deep was a voice from another world saying, "I am here, but you cannot reach me yet." In 1929, a German survey ship called Meteor refined the technique. The echoes came back sharper, clearer. They revealed that Challenger Deep was even deeper than the HMS Challenger had guessed, more than 10,000 meters down. Humanity had learned to measure the unmeasurable, but we were still standing at the shore, listening. It would take another 30 years for someone to finally descend into that darkness. The world was different in 1960, the Cold War era, when nations raced for the sky and, in secret, for the sea. The United States and Switzerland built a small white sphere named Trieste, a bathyscaphe designed to withstand the pressure of the deepest ocean. Its walls were 13 centimeters thick, built of steel so dense that it weighed more than its own volume of seawater. Inside, there was room for two men, Jacques Picard and Don Walsh. On the 23rd of January 1960, they climbed aboard in the grey dawn near Guam. The sea was calm, but the world held its breath. As the crew sealed the hatch, no one knew if the Trieste would survive. The descent took nearly 5 hours. At 300 meters, daylight disappeared. At 1,000 meters, the glass viewport began to creak. By 3,000 meters, the temperature inside had dropped close to freezing. Walsh later described the experience as falling through midnight. At 6,000 meters, they entered the Hadal zone, a place no human had ever seen. The pressure outside was equal to 1,100 times that at sea level, enough to crush battleships. The men spoke little. The descent was hypnotic, the hum of ballast pumps mixing with the occasional groan of the hull. Then, a muffled crack. A window pane had fractured under stress. The crew above radioed down, voices tight with fear. But Picard and Walsh continued. Hours later, they touched the bottom. The clock read 1:06 p.m. Depth, 10,911 meters. They had reached the floor of the Earth. Through the thick glass, they saw a flat plain of fine sediment, pale, almost white, as if dusted with snow. A small cloud rose where their landing disturbed it, curling like smoke in still air. And then, movement. A small fish, translucent and ghostly, darted across the view. Picard noted it in his log, the deepest life ever seen. Proof that even here, under crushing darkness, the spark of life endures. They stayed for only 20 minutes. The hull groaned again, and they began their long ascent. When they emerged on the surface, the ocean was calm, the sky open and blue. They had gone to the bottom of the world and come back alive, the first and, for more than 50 years, the only humans ever to do so. For decades, the trench returned to silence. No human followed the Trieste for half a century. We went to the moon before we returned to the Mariana. The deep remained patient. It waited. In 2012, filmmaker and explorer James Cameron built a vessel called the Deep Sea Challenger and descended alone into the same abyss. His sub was green, narrow, shaped like a torpedo. It took nearly 2 hours to reach the bottom. Cameras recorded the descent, swirling particles, strange gelatinous creatures, and at last, the quiet grey floor of Challenger Deep. Cameron spent 3 hours there, collecting samples and filming. When he returned, he said, "It's a desolate, lunar place, but it feels alive." Since then, technology has opened the trench to machines that never tire. Robotic submersibles now patrol its depths, mapping every ridge, every vent, every silent valley. Their sonar sends out millions of pings that return as detailed maps, digital ghosts of the real landscape. Each echo is a memory stored, a voice from the abyss turned into data. And yet, even with all our senses, the trench keeps its secrets. Only a few % of its walls have been seen in detail. The rest remains shadow, a vast, quiet expanse that humbles every expedition. Sometimes, the machines pick up unexplained sounds, deep rumbles, metallic knocks, long moaning calls. Some are wails, some are earthquakes, some are still unknown. It seems that, even now, the abyss continues to speak in a language we do not yet understand. You sit quietly, listening to the hum of the subzone sonar as it maps the unseen. Each ping echoes into the void, then returns as a soft chime, a heartbeat in the dark. You realize that exploration here is not about conquering the unknown, but learning to listen to it. The trench has always answered. We just had to learn how to hear. So we send our sound into the blackness, again and again. Each echo a question, each silence an invitation. And in that quiet exchange, between light and pressure, between curiosity and patience, the story of human exploration continues a slow descent, not into danger, but into wonder. The hum of the submersible deepens. In your mind, the echoes of past explorers begin to merge with the vibrations of the present. Every bolt, every beam of light, every pulse of electricity carries a trace of those who came before men who dared to descend into the unseen. and discovered that silence is not the absence of sound, but the beginning of meaning. Tonight, we follow them again into the mechanical cathedral that made the impossible possible. The Trieste was not a sleek spacecraft of the sea. It was, by every aesthetic measure, awkward and improbable. A massive gasoline-filled float attached to a small steel sphere by a web of metal struts. Yet, its design was genius in its simplicity. Gasoline is lighter than water and incompressible under pressure, so it provided the buoyancy to lift the heavy capsule. The sphere, no larger than a closet, was built like a vault-thick steel, tiny windows, no room for fear. When it descended into the Mariana Trench in 1960, it carried within it both fragility and faith, a human heart wrapped in armor. At such depths, radio waves cannot travel. Communication is possible only through a single thin cable that hums like a nerve between the surface ship and the diver's capsule. Every word must pass through layers of static, distorted by pressure and salt. The sea becomes a translator, turning voices into ghosts. Even now, recordings from that day survive faint, crackling, ethereal. Depth 9,500 meters. Conditions stable. Then a pause. A burst of static. Light, dim, visibility poor. Another silence. Then a soft voice, almost lost. We are continuing descent. As the Trieste fell, its metal body creaked under the strain, a chorus of tension and resilience. The creaking was not random, it was rhythmic, the language of stress redistributing itself through steel. Each groan was the vessel adjusting, whispering to itself that it could endure. Inside, Pickard and Walsh sat shoulder to shoulder in a chamber barely 2 meters wide. The portholes, only a few inches thick, bowed slightly under pressure. Condensation formed on the walls. Their breath clouded the glass. For hours, they listened to the orchestra of metal, an unending hymn of bolts, rivets, and oxygen valves singing the same word, hold. At 10,000 meters, the sea outside weighed as much as a mountain pressing against the sphere. Every second of survival was a negotiation between gravity and engineering. The lights of the Trieste small halogen lamps cut narrow cones into the dark. Outside those beams, there was nothing. No horizon, no sky, only blackness, so complete it became substance. At the bottom, the lamps illuminated a smooth plain, finer than dust. The light revealed a faint fog of sediment, suspended in water, glowing faintly gold in the beam. In the middle distance, a shape moved, not a shadow, but a living thing. It was a small flatfish, pale and slow, gliding as though time itself had thickened. Pickard, astonished, noted its presence. In that instant, the abyss was no longer empty. It had a heartbeat. Later, some would question the sighting, arguing that such creatures could not survive under that pressure. But perhaps, in that timeless moment, life simply allowed itself to be seen. Above them, the world waited. The Trieste's cable thrummed faintly with electric pulses, transmitting only fragments. When the crew finally resurfaced nearly 9 hours after departure, the hatch was stiff from compression. They climbed out into sunlight and salt wind, blinking like men who had returned from a dream. Mariana, Walsh said softly, is no longer a name. It's a place. The voices of metal and light had carried them there, a machine built from human doubt, a beacon carved from mathematics, and the courage to descend without promise of return. Years later, engineers built new descendants of Trieste, sleeker, faster, capable of descending without fear of implosion. But the sound of creaking metal, the song of stress, remained the same. Every deep-sea craft since has carried that ancient music, the sound of endurance. Cameras replaced eyes, fiber optics replaced cables. Still, the sea demanded humility. Every light sent downward is a question. Every echo returned is an answer, wordless and soft. When the Kaiko, a Japanese remotely operated vehicle, touched the bottom in 1995, its video feed showed the same strange tranquility the Trieste had seen decades earlier. No storms, no waves, only an eternal dusk where the smallest disturbance raised clouds that took hours to settle. In 2009, an American ROV called Nereus followed, transmitting high-definition video from Challenger. Deep shimmering sediments, ribbon-like worms, translucent amphipods dancing in the light. Its machinery glowed green and gold, like a new kind of bioluminescence born from metal and electricity. And then, in 2014, Nereus imploded. The sea took it quietly, in less than a second. At such pressure, failure is not explosion, but implosion. The sea rushing inward at supersonic speed, compressing metal like paper. What remains are fragments, twisted into silence. Engineers mourned it not as a machine, but as a companion lost to the abyss. The ocean remembers both triumph and tragedy. In 2019, another vessel descended the DSV limiting factor, piloted by explorer Victor Vescovo. Unlike the Trieste, it could dive repeatedly, descending and ascending in hours rather than days. Inside its titanium hull, the hum of technology replaced the groan of steel. Screens glowed softly, showing the descent in real time. The machine spoke in numbers, not creaks. And yet, as it touched the seafloor at 10,927 meters deeper than any dive, before the same truth returned, even surrounded by technology, the feeling was still ancient. Outside, the lights revealed a world unchanged since the Trieste. The same pale sediments, the same weightless snow of life and death falling endlessly, the same hush that made thought itself feel reverent. When Vescovo spoke into the recorder, his voice was almost a whisper. It's peaceful, beautiful really. I think the Earth dreams down here. Every dive since then has added to the symphony a library of pings, hums, mechanical sighs, and static-filled words. Together, they form the voice of exploration, metal speaking to pressure, light speaking to darkness, humanity speaking to the unknown. If you listen to recordings from the trench, they sound like music. Not the kind played by instruments, but by endurance itself, a deep, resonant frequency that never quite fades. It is the sound of light pushing against the infinite, of machines made from our imagination whispering, "We are still here." And perhaps the trench whispers back, "So am I." Now, as you sit in the quiet of your room, listening to this story, imagine the hum of the Trieste beneath you, metal, light, and courage, bound together, descending through endless darkness. The voices of exploration still echo, faint, beautiful, unbroken. And in that sound lies the simplest truth of all. The ocean is listening too. The submersible drifts deeper still, and the beam of its light begins to tremble against the infinite dark. The walls of the trench vanish beyond reach. The floor is somewhere below, invisible, waiting. The abyss seems empty. At first, a hollow place carved for silence. Yet that's an illusion. Here, life hides in the blackness, fragile and luminous, shaped by pressure and time. Scientists call this world the Hadal biosphere, but the word barely captures what it means. This is life sculpted by the impossible existence where gravity weighs 1,000-fold heavier, where the sun has never touched, where every breath is chemical, not light. And yet, in this kingdom of night, the creatures move with slow grace, unhurried, almost meditative, as if they've learned a secret we have not. The first glow appears like a heartbeat, a blue pulse, blooming in the dark, then fading to nothing. Another follows, then another. Soon the water ahead becomes a slow dance of light, faint and ephemeral, like embers suspended in smoke. This is bioluminescence, the language of the deep. It is not reflected sunlight, but life itself burning softly to be seen. Down here, nearly 90% of known species produce light not to warm, not to see, but to communicate, to attract, to defend, to exist. A small jelly floats past, its bell translucent, rimmed with living light. Its tendrils glow with electric white, curling and uncurling in waves. When startled, it blinks twice. A Morse code of survival then vanishes into black. Nearby, a creature no longer than your hand flickers with a steady rhythm. It's a lanternfish, its body studded with photophores' tiny organs that work like stars, each controlled by nerves as sensitive as thought. The fish swims slowly, light pulsing down its belly in perfect order, a miniature constellation traveling through the abyss. The deeper we go, the stranger they become. Out of the dark drifts the barrel-eye fish, an almost transparent being with a dome-like head through which its green eyes peer upward. The first explorers who saw it thought it alien, a floating brain, eyes glowing inside a skull of glass. Yet, there's logic to its beauty. In total darkness, its eyes capture the faintest trace of light from above, filtering it through that transparent shield. It lives suspended between blindness and vision, adapting to a world without contrast. Farther on, another light stirs a moving spark that seems to lead us onward. It is the anglerfish, the queen of the abyss. Her body is small, round, and heavy, her teeth curved inward like ivory bars. From her forehead grows a thin stalk tipped with a bioluminescent lure, a living lantern that waves hypnotically in the black water. Prey are drawn to it, like wanderers to a campfire. They approach the glow and see nothing else. And then, in an instant, the light goes out and jaws close around them. Her world is hunger turned into elegance. Yet not every creature here is a hunter. Some are architects, building tiny sanctuaries from the endless drift of the seafloor. The amphipods, tiny crustaceans no bigger than seeds, scuttle along the sediment, scavenging fragments of organic matter, flakes of dead plankton, fragments of bones, invisible snow falling from the surface. Their bodies, flexible as silk, can withstand pressures that would crush steel. When disturbed, they curl into spheres of armor and drift away like sinking pearls. There are snails here too, but not like those we know. The scaly-foot snail wears a shell reinforced with iron sulfide, the only animal known to make armor from metal. Its foot is plated with iron crystals, shining like black glass under light. It crawls across the vented rocks, living proof that life has learned to turn geology into biology. In a world without sunlight, life has replaced photosynthesis with chemosynthesis. Instead of feeding on light, organisms here draw energy from minerals, hydrogen, and sulfur, a chemistry so ancient it may predate the first forests. The abyss is not a wasteland. It is a memory of the earth before life learned to chase the Sunday. Through the viewport, the lights sweep over a drifting swarm, thousands of tiny shapes, each pulsing faintly. These are marine snow grazers, feeding on the endless fall of particles that rain down from above. Every movement they make stirs the sediment like breath across dust. The entire trench seems to shimmer faintly with their quiet feeding life, surviving on what the world forgets. Then, from below, a shadow rises. At first, it seems like a cloud, then a moving wall. It is a giant amphipod, nearly the length of an arm, glowing faintly with its own ghostly light. Its body is semi-transparent, like carved glass, filled with veins that shimmer gold when the sub's lamps hit it. It circles the vessel once, curious, then disappears again into night. In that moment, you understand something. Life down here is not rare. It is abundant, but invisible, its existence hidden by slowness. These creatures do not rush. They drift through centuries, their metabolism slowed to match the rhythm of the deep. Pressure in the human world means danger. Down here, it means balance. The bones of hadal animals are thinner, their muscles softer, their membranes laced with special proteins that keep water inside their cells from collapsing. Their blood is filled with molecules that resist compression, keeping them supple in a place where even titanium yields. A fish flits past the hadal snailfish, perhaps the highest-dwelling vertebrate in the world. Its body is nearly transparent, its skin thin as silk, but its spirit unbreakable. It glides effortlessly through the dark, as if gravity forgot it existed. This creature lives where the pressure is 1,000 atmospheres, more than 10 tons on every square inch, yet it moves as gracefully as a bird in air. When scientists caught one in 2014 using a baited trap, they found it smiling, its body rippling in slow motion, eyes still bright. It is not a symbol of suffering, but of ease, proof that even in the harshest places, life does not fight the world. It becomes part of it. A cluster of sea cucumbers drifts by, their gelatinous bodies glowing faintly pink. They move like ghosts, slowly tumbling in the weak current. Nearby, brittle stars stretch long arms toward invisible prey. Microscopic plankton spin around them, like dust caught in a beam of light. Each organism here exists as part of a delicate balance, a quiet choreography of hunger, stillness, and survival. There are no predators in the way we understand them, no prey that screams. Just the continuous exchange of energy, silent and endless, like breath in sleep. When you look closely enough, even the darkness breathes. And so, we realize that this place once thought barren is filled with voices, not voices of sound, but of form and rhythm. The glimmer of a jelly, the pulse of a fish, the slow turning of an unseen current that carries dust and life together. The creatures of the black deep do not seek to be seen. They simply are. Perhaps that's why they feel so peaceful to watch. They remind us that existence doesn't need to announce itself. It can glow quietly in the dark and still be enough. The sub drifts forward, its lights dimmed now. Outside, the ocean glows faintly, a living galaxy of gentle sparks. For a moment, it's easy to imagine that you are not underwater at all, but floating among stars. And maybe that's the truth. The sea and the cosmos are twins, both dark, both infinite, both alive with quiet fire. Here, at the bottom of the world, life and light still find each other. And in their meeting, the universe remembers how to shine. By now, the pressure outside the submersible is enough to crush steel into dust over 1,100 atmospheres, or more than 16,000 pounds on every square inch. The human mind cannot truly grasp such weight. It's like imagining an elephant balanced on a postage stamp, or a mountain pressing down upon a teacup. Yet somehow, in this infinite silence, life not only survives, it thrives. The creatures of the trench are not survivors in the desperate sense of the word. They are engineers of biology, poets of pressure, designers of existence at the edge of physics. Their bodies are not armored fortresses, but fluid harmonies. Every organ, every cell, every molecule within them has learned to whisper instead of resist. At these depths, the first rule of survival is flexibility. Bones become liabilities, shells become prisons. The deeper one goes, the softer life must be. Hadal creatures trade solidity for adaptability, gelatinous muscles, paper-thin skin, and bodies so permeated with water that the pressure outside equals the pressure within. The Hadal snailfish, a master of this trade, is the trench's quiet philosopher. Its skin is nearly transparent, its bones reduced to wisps, and yet its face carries what seems like a smile. It drifts through the water as if weightless, perfectly attuned to the crushing world around it. Inside its tissues, molecules called TMAO stabilize proteins that would otherwise collapse. For humans, such compounds make fish smell fishy. But for these animals, they are life scaffolding, invisible armor built from chemistry. At shallower depths, these molecules would be toxic. Down here, they are sacred. Vision changes too. Eyes grow enormous or vanish completely. The snailfish sees without light, its retinas tuned to faint bioluminescence, its pupils absorbing the ghost glow of distant prey. Other creatures, like the cusk eel, have eyes that are vestigial, sunken pearls hidden beneath skin. Some see with vibrations, others with pressure gradients, reading the water's movements as though the ocean were a braille manuscript written in motion. Even brains adapt. Neural signals travel slower under pressure, and so evolution has simplified them. The minds of these creatures are not about quick thought but perfect stillness, a kind of awareness without noise. They react not by thinking, but by becoming. Temperature, too, becomes a teacher. Down here, the water is near freezing, barely 1.6 degrees Celsius, constant and merciless. Most enzymes, most metabolisms would freeze into silence. But the trench's inhabitants have rewritten the laws of biochemistry. Their enzymes are flexible, bending instead of breaking. Their cell membranes are liquid, even in the cold. The giant amphipod, shimmering like glass, has a bloodstream rich in antifreeze proteins that keep its cells supple. These molecules are found in the deep's smallest survivors. 2 microbes clinging to rocks, surviving in temperatures colder than ice. If the planet's warmth were ever to fade, these would likely be the last sparks of life to go out. The trench also demands slowness. Energy here is rare. Food falls from above in thin, intermittent snow. So, metabolism becomes minimalist. Hearts beat a few times per minute. Muscles twitch only when needed. Reproduction is patient. Some species lay eggs that take years to hatch, waiting until the water whispers that conditions are right. To human eyes, this looks like stagnation. To nature, it's perfection. Imagine a life so in sync with its world that time itself becomes optional. Pressure does strange things to molecules. It squeezes them closer until even water becomes heavier. In such density, sound moves faster, heat disperses slower, and smell disappears entirely. To survive here, biology has transformed the impossible into ordinary. Some fish, for example, use piezolites, special molecules that prevent their proteins from collapsing. Others change their very chemistry, turning cell membranes into flexible oil films that never shatter. It is as if evolution took a symphony written for air and transposed it into the key of water, keeping the melody but changing every note. Even movement here follows its own laws. Because the water is so dense, swimming requires almost no energy. Creatures hover more than they move, pulsing slowly to stay in place. Many use buoyant oils in their tissues instead of swim bladders, since trapped air would implode at this depth. You see one now, a sea cucumber, pale pink and glowing faintly like a lantern wrapped in jelly. It rises and falls rhythmically, digesting particles that fell from the surface weeks or months ago. Nearby, a ribbon-like holothurian drifts past, its skin studded with tiny dots of light. These animals clean the floor of the world, turning decay into motion, memory into matter. On the sub-sonar, faint shapes flicker. They are hadal amphipods, scurrying along the sediment. They move in silence, collecting what little food exists, fragments of whale bones, wood, or the remains of other explorers' descent. In 2019, a camera captured one eating a piece of plastic packaging. Even at the bottom of the world, our fingerprints remain. Yet the amphipod continues, patient, undisturbed. It adapts again, eating what exists, evolving enzymes to digest the indigestible. It is not defiance, it is resilience, pure and wordless. Somewhere beyond the light, a shadow moves. It's enormous, perhaps the size of a small car. The sensors pick up faint pulses, maybe a shark, maybe something unknown. It drifts past without a sound, leaving only the trail of its wake. For all our technology, the trench still hides secrets, species seen once, then never again. The abyss keeps its own catalogue, and it doesn't share easily. Even microbes here are extraordinary. Scientists recovered samples from sediment cores and found entire colonies thriving in complete isolation, bacteria that digest rocks, archaea that breathe methane, viruses that have evolved forms unlike any on the surface. Some have been dormant for 10 million years, waiting patiently, like thoughts paused mid-sentence. Pressure is not a barrier for them, it is home. The sub's lights dim to conserve power. Outside, the glow of bioluminescence returns, scattered among the drifting plankton like candlelight through fog. Every flicker, every pulse, every faint shimmer is a conversation, one that has continued unbroken for millions of years. The trench teaches an ancient truth. Life does not merely endure adversity, it reshapes itself until adversity becomes habitat. What crushes one form becomes cradle for another. You watch through the viewport as the darkness breathes, shapes drift, lights flicker, and you realize something that no map or measurement can express. The deep is not dead, not cold, not empty. It is alive in its own way, slow and eternal. Perhaps the reason these creatures survive where nothing should is because they never rush to live. They let the ocean decide the pace. They adapt not out of fear, but acceptance. And in their quiet patience, they become immortal in spirit. Let your own breath slow now, matching theirs long, deep, unhurried. The deeper we go, the more we learn. Pressure is not punishment, it is purpose. In the blackest waters of the earth, life glows softly, whispering that peace is found not in escaping the weight of the world, but in learning how to live within it. The water outside is still and black, but in its silence, it hides an unseen laboratory, an oceanic alchemy older than sunlight. Down here, every molecule behaves differently. Pressure reshapes matter, temperature slows motion, and yet, from that frozen patience, the deep creates its own kind of fire. If the surface world runs on the physics of light, the trench runs on the chemistry of darkness. Life here is born not from photosynthesis, but from chemosynthesis, the ability to draw energy from the earth itself. Volcanoes breathe through the sea floor, leaking whispers of hydrogen, methane, and sulfur. Around those whispers, life gathers like worshippers around a flame. This is a world where rock feeds biology. The sub-sensors pick up a shimmer in the black water, a faint silver haze drifting upward from a ridge ahead. As we approach, the lights reveal something miraculous. A hydrothermal vent, rising from the seafloor like a chimney made of metal. It breathes. Superheated water gushes from its mouth at nearly 400 degrees Celsius, yet does not boil. The immense pressure prevents it. The plume rises in a twisting column, filled with minerals, iron, manganese, zinc, sulfur. When that fluid meets the freezing seawater, the metals crystallize instantly, forming shimmering black smoke that curls and dances in the dark. These are the black smokers, the furnaces of the abyss. Each one is a paradox, both deadly and nurturing. Around the vent, life flourishes. Giant tube worms stand like pale candles, their bodies nearly 2 meters long, their crimson plumes waving in the current. They have no mouths, no stomachs. Inside them live symbiotic bacteria that turn hydrogen sulfide into energy. The worm becomes the housing, the bacteria, the heartbeat. Together, they create something neither could achieve alone, a living engine powered by poison. Nearby, clusters of white crabs scuttle along the vent's sides, their claws combing through mats of microbial film that grow like frost. Their shells glow faintly blue under the lights, dusted with mineral sheen. They look as if carved from porcelain. Further out, shrimp gather in clouds, their translucent bodies flashing with faint red stripes. They swarm near the warmth, feeding on bacteria and algae that bloom in the chemical haze. Their movements are rhythmic, hypnotic, a dance between heat and darkness. In this circle of life, the sun is irrelevant. The deep has made its own cosmos. Chemical reactions here blur the line between biology and geology. Hydrogen meets carbon dioxide, forming methane, the same process that may have sparked life itself billions of years ago. Every vent, every fissure, is a miniature origin story, repeating endlessly in the shadows. Scientists believe that the first life on Earth may have emerged in places like this, long before oxygen filled the air. Simple cells once clung to mineral walls, harvesting energy from heat and metal. Over millions of years, they learned to copy themselves, to remember, to change. And so, from black chimneys like these, the spark of life began to climb upward toward light, land, and eventually, us. Down here, that ancient story continues, unchanged. The chemical symphony extends beyond the vents. Even in the open trenches, microbes live by metabolizing what the world forgets. Methane seeping from sediments, hydrogen bubbles rising from cracks, or faint traces of ammonia drifting through the water. To them, these are banquets. One such bacterium, Theomicrospira crunogena, can survive in boiling water laced with acid. Another, D. sulfurudis or Daxviator, lives entirely on radiation and hydrogen deep beneath the seafloor, untouched by light for millions of years. Its name means the bold traveler. Down here, courage is chemical. The deep sea is also a place of chemical artistry. Certain amphipods produce antifreeze proteins that keep their cells liquid at sub-zero temperatures. Others excrete lubricants that resist crushing pressure. Some even synthesize compounds unknown on the surface molecules, so complex that chemists still struggle to understand them. Many of these have become treasures for science. Potential antibiotics, anti-cancer agents, and materials stronger than any we have made. Every strange creature drifting through the trench might hold a secret molecule, a pattern capable of saving lives far above. The abyss is not barren. It is generous in ways we've only begun to measure. As the sub's cameras pan across the vent field, you can see streams of shimmering water bending light like glass. The water is thick with minerals, heavy with promise. The sound sensors record faint popping noises, the hiss of gas escaping rock, the murmur of minerals forming crystals under pressure. It's the sound of chemistry writing poetry. The walls near the vent are layered in metallic frost. Iron and sulfur combine to form pyrite fool's gold glittering faintly under the light. Other vents ooze white clouds rich in barium and calcium, known as white smokers. Between them, fragile stalagmites of mineral growth rise, shaped like towers and cathedrals, each one alive with bacteria. The landscape feels less like geology and more like architecture temples built by the Earth's heat, decorated by life itself. But not all chemistry here is kind. The same gases that feed life can also kill it. Hydrogen sulfide, essential to the worms and crabs, is lethal to most surface species. Methane bubbles can burst suddenly, swallowing anything above. And when vents die, their communities collapse within days, a reminder that even at the edge of stability, impermanence rules. Still, destruction here is never final. New vents form, new colonies rise. Chemistry restarts its endless equation. Sulfur, heat, pressure, time. It's the closest thing the Earth has to reincarnation. In one corner of the vent field, a robotic arm collects a sample, a fragment of mineral crust still warm to the touch. Steam coils upward in delicate ribbons, shimmering like breath in cold air. For a brief moment, the boundary between life and rock blurs. You realize that what you're witnessing is not just survival, but transformation. Life is not an intruder in the trench. It is the trench, translated into softness. You lean back, listening to the hum of instruments. Outside, the vent field glows softly in the dark, the nearest thing this world has to firelight. The water shimmers with metallic light, like starlight scattered through smoke. Perhaps this is how the universe began. Heat and pressure meeting water, chemistry turning into life, darkness learning to glow. The strange chemistry of the deep is not just science. It is memory of creation, of endurance, of the moment when nothing became something. The sub drifts upward slightly, leaving the vents behind. Their glow fades into blackness, but the warmth lingers in the mind. The trench falls silent again. But the silence feels different now, charged, alive, full of potential. Everything around you, rock, water, pressure, is still reacting, still becoming. The universe has never stopped creating. It merely slowed down enough for us to notice. The vents fade behind you, and the sea grows silent once more. The trench floor stretches ahead like an endless plain of grey silk, dimpled by slow avalanches of silt and ancient rain. Every inch of it seems still, but that stillness is deceptive. Beneath this calm surface lies one of the strangest worlds on Earth, a living skin of sediment where time moves slower than thought. Here, in the soft mud of the abyss, billions of microscopic creatures breathe, divide, and dream in chemical silence. To the human eye, it looks like lifeless dust. To the microscope, it's an empire. The sub's lights sweep across the seafloor. The mud shimmers faintly, fine as ash, swirling in slow motion as the currents stir it. Instruments show that this sediment has been falling for tens of millions of years, a layer cake of history, each grain a memory of a vanished world. The uppermost layer is modern, only a few centimeters thick, made of drifting plankton and dust carried by storms thousands of miles away. Beneath that lies the past, the remains of ice ages, volcanic winters, ancient blooms of life. Deeper still lie particles, older than humanity, shells of microorganisms that lived and died when dinosaurs walked on land. Every millimeter downward is 1,000 years of silence. And yet, even here, something stirs. Tiny bacteria and archaea inhabit this sediment, living in spaces thinner than a hair. They feed not on sunlight, but on faint traces of carbon and sulfur seeping upward from the Earth's crust. Their metabolism is so slow that one cell division can take a century. Some of them may not have divided at all since the Ice Age, merely repairing themselves over and over, refusing to die. Scientists once believed life ended after a few meters of mud. Then, in 2010, researchers drilled into the seafloor beneath the Pacific and found microbes alive 400 meters below, sealed in clay that hadn't seen sunlight for 86 million years. When the samples were brought to the surface and given nutrients, the cells awoke, stretching, dividing, remembering how to live. It was as if the Earth had kept a diary, and suddenly, the words began to move again. At these depths, oxygen is rare. Some microbes have learned to breathe iron or manganese, stripping electrons from minerals as if from air. Others create miniature ecosystems, trading waste for energy. One species excretes sulfide, which another consumes. A third feeds on that byproduct, and in return, produces the compounds the first one needs. The result is a microscopic economy, slow, patient, perfectly balanced. If you could magnify the mud, you'd see filaments, glowing faintly blue colonies of bacteria conducting electricity through their own bodies. They form living cables, that carry charge between oxygen-rich and oxygen-poor layers, bridging chemical distances the size of mountains at their scale. To call it intelligence would be poetic, but not wrong. It is the intelligence of persistence. The mud itself is layered like music. Each horizon has a different tone: the red band of oxidized iron, the black line of manganese, the pale smear of silica dust from distant deserts. Mixed within are glassy shards from ancient volcanoes, the bones of plankton, and the microscopic teeth of radiolarians, tiny glass spheres that once floated near the surface. These sediments are not just history, they are archives of motion. Currents, storms, even the tilt of the earth have left fingerprints here. If you could read them, you could reconstruct every climate the planet has ever known. And somewhere, within those ancient pages, life still breathes. The sub lowers a sampling arm. A narrow cora sinks into the sea floor, pulling up a column of grey and brown. Inside that column lie eons top to bottom, present to primeval. The mud glistens in the light, thick and heavy, releasing tiny bubbles that rise like sighs. Somewhere within, microbes begin to move disturbed after millennia of stillness. They are small beyond comprehension, yet they contain the same biochemical alphabet as you: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, the same letters rearranged by pressure, time, and patience. When the core is sealed, the sediment continues to shift quietly, as if adjusting to being seen. There's a theory among deep-sea scientists that the ocean floor is alive, not metaphorically, but literally. Every grain of mud houses metabolism, every pore a cell. Collectively, they form what researchers call the deep biosphere, a living layer that may contain more biomass than all the animals of the surface combined. If true, then the planet's beating heart lies not above, but below in the unseen respiration of mud. These microbes recycle the ocean's waste, filter its chemicals, and regulate carbon across millennia. Their breath shapes the atmosphere we depend on. Their silence stabilizes the world. They are, in a quiet way, the architects of stability, and they ask for nothing in return. Occasionally, the sonar catches faint tremors in the sediment microquakes that send clouds of dust drifting upward. Each tremor awakens ancient pockets of gas: methane, carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide. These bubbles rise slowly, like ghosts exhaled by the planet. In the soft light, they shimmer tiny spheres reflecting the sub's glow, as if the mud itself were whispering secrets. Some of those gases escape into the ocean and feed bacteria higher up. Others get trapped again, reborn in new forms, cycling endlessly. Nothing here truly ends, it just transforms. The pilot dims the lights to near darkness. In the faint glow, the mud below looks alive, rippling gently with invisible movement. You watch closely and realize it is small worms, translucent as threads, weaving through the sediment like living punctuation. Each motion leaves a trail, a sentence, a story written in silt. It's humbling to think that these creatures, unseen and unnamed, may have been here since before our species existed, quietly turning over the world, one grain at a time. Perhaps consciousness itself began like this: a whisper in the mud, molecules learning to listen to one another. As the sub drifts onward, the light touches an unusual shape, a small dome rising from the seafloor. It looks like a bubble, half buried in silt. On closer view, it's a microbial mat, smooth and iridescent, shimmering like a pearl. Inside that dome, thousands of cells work together, creating a thin membrane that traps methane and releases it in slow breaths. Each dome is a lung, exhaling the history of the Earth. You watch the bubbles rise, glinting like silver prayers, each one a reminder that even the quietest things are alive. Above, the world moves fast cities, storms, heartbeat after heartbeat. But down here, The measure of existence is different. A single pulse of mud, a single chemical sigh, can take 1,000 years. And yet, this slow life is not lesser, it's eternal. The whispers in the mud are the planet thinking not in words, but in chemistry. And if you listen closely enough, you can almost hear it, a faint hum of creation, still unfolding, grain by grain. If the surface of the sea is a sky of light, then the deep is its night, and from that distant sky, a quiet weather always falls. It falls when the moon is thin and when the sun is bright. It falls in winter grey and in summer bloom. It falls while no one watches. The scientists call it marine snow. Down here, we call it life arriving gently, one grain at a time. At first it seems like dust in the beam, tiny flecks turning slowly as the sub drifts past. But look longer, and you begin to see shapes within the fall. Shredded ribbons of algae, ghostly threads of jelly, the soft crumbs of 1,000 meals, the husks of plankton no larger than a letter on a page. Each particle tells a small story. Together they become weather constant, patient, nourishing. This snow begins far above, where sunlight wakes floating forests of phytoplankton. They bloom, they feed, they are eaten by zooplankton, and what is not consumed becomes the first crystals of the fall organic fragments bound by a kind of sea glue called transparent exopolymer. These sticky webs gather everything they touch: pollen carried by winds across oceans, soot from distant cities, iron dust blown from deserts, volcanic ash, fine as breath. In hours, a speck becomes a flake becomes a tuft becomes a drifting cloud that sinks under its own small weight. Not all snow is slow. Some creatures, salps, pyrosomes, and other gelatinous grazers turn blooms into dense pellets that plunge like soft hailstones, falling tens to hundreds of meters a day. In that sudden rain, the deep receives a feast. The trench stirs, and the quiet floor becomes a table. The sub's lamps pick out a shimmer ahead, like fog catching the light. We move through it as one would through a quiet snowfall at night. Each mote spins, lingers, then slips past into the dark below. We are crossing a vein of descending life, the sea's biological pump in motion, carrying the memory of sunlight downward. Some of the snow dissolves before it reaches us. Bacteria rise to meet it, tasting the edges, turning what was alive into what will feed life again. But a portion continues on, riding the stillness toward the abyss. Calcium carbonate shells from foraminifera and coccolithophores, glassy shards of diatoms, sand grains of dust, all add weight, a ballast that helps carbon fall. What the wind once gave the sea, gravity gives the deep. In places like this trench, the geometry of the seafloor gathers what the ocean lets go. The steep walls focus the fall. Slides and currents guide it into the axis. Here, the snow is thicker than in the open abyss. The way drifts along a fence grow tall while nearby fields stay thin. The huddle floor is, in a sense, the ocean's leeward side. Life below listens for weather. Amphipods rise from their burrows when the first flecks arrive, antennae tasting the water like hands. Sea cucumbers unfurl feeding arms and begin the slow arithmetic of eating grain by patient grain. Tiny worms stitch through the upper centimeters of mud, leaving cursive trails that sparkle with disturbed sediment. Even microbes wake a little, touching what falls with filaments that look, under a lens, like frost. Sometimes, the snow becomes a storm. A great bloom dies quickly. A river flood carries forests of leaves to sea. A storm stirs the surface and shakes loose a season's worth of growth. Then the abyss brightens, with falling life flakes thick as breath, strings and clumps, and soft pellets descending in a hush. For a week, the deep is busy. For a year afterward, it remembers. And sometimes the sky does not send snow at all. It sends a wail, A whalefall is not a metaphor. It is a body becoming weather. When a giant sinks, it arrives like a cathedral. First come the swift scavengers, sharks, hagfish, opportunists, shaped by hunger. The water clouds with oil and bone dust. Then arrive the enrichment opportunists, worms, snails, amphipods, gathering in numbers, writing spirals in the softening flesh. Months pass. Finally, the fall enters its long, quiet stage. Sulfophilic communities bloom on the bones, where bacteria turn fat into hydrogen sulfide and feed entire cities of life. Mussels, clams, crustaceans, and the haunting ozdaks, the bone-eating worms, whose root-like bodies dissolve calcium and draw nourishment from the past. A single whale can sustain the deep for decades. In the trench, where the world collects itself, such cathedrals are rare, but their memory remains in the chemistry of the mud and in the patient abundance of those who wait. We pause the sub and dim the lights. Outside, the fall becomes visible again, fine as ash, bright as dust in a sunbeam, though no sun can reach us. Schools of tiny copepods turn among the particles like stars disturbed by wind. A transparent larvacean drifts past, inside its self-built house of mucus, beating its tail to filter the snow. When its filter clogs, it abandons the house and builds another, the old one sinking as a sudden, generous flake. Even architecture becomes nourishment here. Every night, nearer the surface, billions of creatures rise to feed in the light and sink again at dawn, the great dial migration, the largest movement of life on the planet. With them, they carry carbon downward inside their bodies. With their waste, they make pellets that fall like rain. The trench receives only whispers of that commute, but whispers given time become continents. There is sorrow in the fall too. Mixed among the shells and glass of plankton are fragments that do not belong. Threads of microplastic, flecks of paint, polymer grains weathered to the size of dust. They too sink. They too arrive. Amphipods have been found with these fragments in their stomachs, bright as confetti under a microscope. The deep does not judge. It keeps what it is given. But the map of the snow now includes our names. Even so, the sea remains generous. For every unkind thing that falls, there are 1,000 gifts. The spent petals of blooms, the tiny skeletons of light, the slow rain of hope that keeps the dark alive. In taking, the deep preserves. In preserving, it steadies the world above. Carbon carried down by snow can remain here for centuries, locked in mud and memory. The abyss is not only a stomach, it is a vault. We move on, following a lane of thicker fall, a pale river crossing the black. The sensors record a gentle acceleration of particles, a hint of turbidity farther upslope, perhaps a small slide awakened by a distant quake. The water grows milky in the beam, then clears again. Behind us, the cloud settles like a soft breath returned to sleep. Imagine a single flake's journey. It begins as sunlight woven into sugar by a cell the size of a speck. It is grazed, broken, glued, and made heavy. It falls past blue, past green, past gray, through the twilight, into the dark. It meets mouths and misses them. It is thinned by bacteria, restitched by mucus, wrapped in glass, sanded by dust. It drifts for days or weeks or months. And then, at last, it rests on a ledge, in a trough, within the quiet fold of a trench. There, its carbon becomes someone else. Its calcium writes itself into mud. Its memory dissolves into the sea's long story. One flake is nothing. 10 trillion flakes are a climate. We rebrighten the lamps. The snow thickens briefly, then thins. In the glow, we can see the tracks of what has passed. Delicate scrapes where a cucumber fed, small pits where amphipods tested the surface, faint ripples where a bottom current combed the grains. The floor of the world is always rewriting itself, an endless palimpsest of feeding and falling. Perhaps that is why this site is so calming. It holds the rhythm of breath. Inhale, exhale, bloom, fall, rise, feed, sink, rest. The ocean's pulse is slow, but it is sure. Let your breathing match it now, long in, long out, like flakes descending without hurry. When we finally ease the thrusters and move on, the snow continues behind us, unbothered by our passing. It fell before we came. It falls while we are here. It will fall long after we are gone. The abyss is patient, and patience, it turns out, is nourishment. Some weather thunders. This weather whispers. Some storms tear. This one stitches. And in that unending, silent stitching, the abyssal rain, the deepest rooms of the earth remain alive. The trench does not only hold the bones of the earth, it holds the bones of us. As the sub drifts through the black expanse, the sonar catches an unfamiliar shape, angular, hollow, not born of geology. The light turns, and there it is, the outline of a ship, lying on its side like a sleeping giant, its ribs exposed to the quiet. Rust blossoms across its hull like slow fire. The abyss has claimed it gently, wrapping it in silt and stillness. This is not the wreck of a single era, but of many. The ocean floor is a library of metal and memory vessels lost in storms, planes swallowed by war, cargoes dropped from careless hands. Over time, all of them drift toward the deepest places. The Mariana Trench is their final silence. The one before us might have been a freighter, or perhaps a naval relic. Its name is long erased. The letters are only ghosts of paint. Nearby lie the remains of barrels, cables, fragments of porcelain. Crabs crawl across them, their shells glinting like coins. A garden of white tube worms grows from a ruptured seam, drawing nourishment from rusting iron. What was once a mark of human ambition has become a reef. Even steel can turn soft here. The abyss eats it not with fire, but with patience. Microscopic iron-eating bacteria coat the hull, digesting metal atom by atom. They leave lacework patterns where bolts once held fast, a delicate filigree that looks almost intentional. If you touch it, it crumbles into dust finer than sand. Somewhere inside, where cabins once stood, the sub's cameras glimpse a shape, a clock frozen at 3:12, its hands corroded, its glass long gone. A fish glides through the space where air once filled rooms. Curtains of silt sway where paper once lay. A door still hangs from its hinges, opening and closing with each small tremor, as though someone unseen still moves within. Wrecks like this are time capsules without clocks. They decay at a pace beyond human perception, every surface turning slowly into habitat. In 100 years, this will be a skeleton of iron. In 1,000, a ridge of stone. Eventually, it will be indistinguishable from the trench itself, memory metamorphosed into geology. Not all wrecks sleep alone. Scattered across the Pacific Basin are countless remains, fighters, submarines, tankers, each resting at different depths. The deep sea is both graveyard and archive. Many belong to the Second World War, when ships vanished in fire and smoke above and drifted down here in silence. The Japanese battleship Musashi lies north of here, nearly 4 kilometers down, her turrets still aimed toward the ghosts of enemies. The USS Johnston, one of the deepest wrecks ever found, rests farther east, its steel warped by heat, its decks covered in sea snow. These ships that once carried war now cradle life. Coral polyps cling to gun barrels. Amphipods nest in bullet holes. Rusticles, mineral stalactites formed by bacteria, hang from steel like melting wax. Down here, even history is digested. Human artifacts have been found in trenches far deeper than those wrecks. In 2019, an unmanned probe descending to Challenger, deep filmed a white object resting among stones. It was not coral or shell. It was plastic, a fragment of packaging from the surface world. Scientists recovered it, labeled it, and returned it to light. In its polymer chains, they found traces of chemicals that had never existed before the 20th century. Even the abyss, which predates the continents, now holds inventions less than a century old. Our legacy has already sunk, and yet the sea does not rage against us. It transforms what we drop. Plastic becomes scaffold for microbial mats. Metal becomes reef. Glass becomes sand again. The trench is the ultimate recycler, not out of kindness, but out of inevitability. Nothing stays foreign for long. Everything becomes ocean, eventually. Inside another wreck, the cameras find something smaller, a message bottle wedged between beams. The paper inside is gone, but the glass remains intact. On its surface grows a thin film of white bacteria, the same species that covers whale bones and vents. It gleams faintly, as if remembering light. Perhaps the message was never meant to be read. Perhaps it found its home instead. Objects here are not lost. They are adopted. A teacup becomes a cave for shrimp. A wire coil becomes a coral. A steel girder becomes a highway for worms. The abyss has no concept of waste, only transformation. In a broader sense, these wrecks are more than relics. They are mirrors. They show us how the earth erases its own scars. Above, we see tragedy. Below, we see equilibrium. The trench has no sentimentality. It turns our ruins into nourishment, our monuments into minerals. It's humbling, but also comforting. The things we create will not last, but they will not vanish either. They'll simply change, as everything does, into forms the sea can use. Perhaps immortality lies not in preservation, but in participation. The sonar pulses again. Another metallic echo answers from far away, a different wreck, perhaps, or a fallen satellite fragment. There are pieces of us scattered even here. Bolts from research submersibles, fragments of probes, shreds of cables. Our curiosity leaves a trail of breadcrumbs across the sea floor, marking how far we've come and how easily we fall. But listen closely. The ocean does not resent intrusion. Its currents flow through the empty corridors, washing them clean, filling them with silt and calm. In 1,000 years, these ships will become part of the sediment layer that future geologists will call the Anthropocene, the age of humans, a faint band in rock, telling of cities, wars, plastics, and songs. Even our mistakes become fossils. The sub glides over the wreck one last time. In the beam, the ship looks peaceful now, its broken mast, surrounded by small fish that flicker like stars. A crab perches on the wheelhouse, claws raised as if claiming command. The trench's snow drifts down, blanketing everything in soft white, turning ruin into rest. You realize that every civilization ends this way, quiet, beautiful, and carried forward by the same patience that wears down mountains. The sea forgets nothing, but it forgives completely. As we move on, the lights fade from the wreck and return to the endless black. The sonar's ping becomes a metronome again, steady and slow. You exhale, and it feels like history exhaling with you. Up above, the surface waves still crash and roar. Down here, every sound is a lullaby. What was once metal and motion is now memory and peace. The ghosts of sunken ships rest beneath the weight of eternity, whispering to no one in particular. All things sink, all things change, all things are carried home. At the surface, plastic is ordinary, a bottle by a park bench, a wrapper caught in a breeze, a thread shed silently from a favorite sweater. But the sea keeps its promises, even the ones we do not mean to make. What leaves our hands does not leave the world. It drifts, it fragments, it journeys, and in time, it arrives here in the quietest rooms of the ocean, where light has never lived. We call this place pristine, but the deep is also a ledger. It records everything that falls. Among the flakes of marine snow, among the shells of vanished plankton, and the dust of distant deserts, there are new stars in the abyssal weather. Microplastics and nanoplastics, too small to see, too many to count. Fibers from clothing, fragments from packaging, beads, films, and crumbs that forgot their shapes. Some are heavy with salt and sink quickly. Others ride the seasons, wandering through currents before surrendering to gravity. In the beam of the sub's light, they are indistinguishable from the rest of the fall. Pale, soft, aimless. But under a lens, their edges are too straight, their colors too stubborn. Blue that doesn't fade, white that doesn't yellow. A geometry that belongs to factories, not to tides. Plastic enters the deep by many paths. Some particles hitchhike on marine snow, glued into sinking clumps by the ocean's own invisible exopolymers. Others grow heavy as they gather life on their surfaces, a process sailors once called fouling, but which biologists now read as colonization. Within days, a plastic flake becomes a living raft, coated in microbes that eat, excrete, and build. The raft takes on weight and tilts downward, a tiny boat returning to harbors it never meant to seek. Even the wind contributes. Microfibers escape laundry and ride the air across continents. They fall with rain, slip through rivers, and join the sea with the same quiet certainty as leaves in autumn. Down here, far below the reach of storms, those fibers arrive as a whisper that never ends. Sometimes the abyss receives larger offerings, a bag snagged on a ridge, a ribbon of packaging caught like a pale eel in a crack, the careful block letters of a brand name made meaningless by pressure and time. In 2019, explorers filmed a white scrap resting in Challenger. Deep, not coral, not shell, but a messenger from shore. The trench accepted it, the way it accepts everything. The deep does not simply store plastic, it reshapes it. Pressure embrittles, cold stiffens, edges crack and crumble. Nanoplastics pieces so small they move like molecules, begin to drift where even bacteria can follow. On their surfaces, chemicals congregate, persistent organic pollutants, metals, and stray hydrocarbons that the ocean carries in faint dilution. Plastic is not only matter, it is a map for other things to gather upon. Soon, each particle becomes a tiny city called the plastisphere, a neighborhood of microbes sharing surfaces and trades. Some species seem to prefer plastic the way lichens prefer stone. Others alter it, etching trails as if writing in a soft script, leaving behind grooves that glimmer under magnification. Plastic, which was meant to resist change, begins to hold biographies. And as with every city, there are visitors. Amphipods nibble, larval fishes taste, worms test and move on. In the stomachs of hadal amphipods, researchers have found confetti-bright fragments, impossible to digest, but easy to mistake for food. The animals survive, because survival is what they do. They pass the pieces along, not gone, simply traveling. We follow a gentle current along the trench wall. The lights reveal nothing obvious, only the endless fall. Yet the instruments count. Polymer signatures in the water column, fibers tangled among diatom shells in the upper centimeter of mud, tiny peaks on the mass spectrometer that whisper polyethylene, polypropylene, PET. Numbers are a kind of listening. What they say here is simple. The deep is already a museum of our age. It is tempting to imagine catastrophe, but the abyss rarely speaks in disasters. It speaks in accumulations. A few particles per liter, a few hundred per kilogram of sediment, a few thousand over a square meter of seafloor. Multiply by the size of the trench, then by the centuries to come, and you begin to see the shape of a future layer. a thin seam of synthetic dust pressed between epochs of shell and stone. Paleontologists of another age will give it a name. We have already given it a cause. This is not a story of villains and victims. The amphipod that eats a thread does not suffer in the way we fear. It adapts, because that is what the deep teaches. The microbes that live on plastic do not mourn, they metabolize. Even so, there are subtler risks, the kind that only time can reveal. Nanoplastics can move where larger fragments cannot across membranes, into tissues, into the biochemical neighborhoods where enzymes work and signals pass. The chemicals that ride plastics may dissolve and enter food webs, thread by thread, breath by breath. In the great slowness of the deep, cause and effect drift apart like ships passing in fog. By the time we measure change, centuries may have turned. That is why listening now matters, not because the abyss cries out, but because it rarely will. The sub settles a few meters above the seafloor. We dim the lamps and switch to a bleak light. In that softer glow, the mud reveals its new constellations, tiny flecks that flash as they catch the beam, threads that lie across grains, like hair across a page. A sea cucumber inches forward, gathering sediment with patient mouthparts, and leaving behind a smooth ribbon, a text revised by digestion. Within that ribbon are everything the sea has offered today: diatoms and dust, shell and silt, fragments born of sunlight, fragments born of us. A brittle star unfurls, thin as wire, and begins to comb the water above with its arms. Its skin glitters. Under a microscope, some of that glitter would be plastic. But here, unmagnified, it simply looks like stars adhering to a night sky. Beauty and truth do not argue. They coexist, even when we wish they would not. What does the deep do with what we send? The same thing it does with everything. It transforms. Plastic becomes reef for bacteria. Fibers become scaffolds for snow. Films become sails that carry microbes into new chemistry. In time long, quiet time, even polymers surrender. Sunlight is absent here, but oxidation and mechanical weathering persist in slower dialects. Pieces fracture, become dust, and settle into rock that future hands will break with hammers, puzzled by the thin seam that smells faintly of history. The trench is not a landfill. It is a processor without malice, running a program written by physics. Everything that falls is sorted by weight, size, and chance. Some slides into the axis, some sticks on a ledge, some returns to the water column in a turbidity surge born from a distant quake. Nothing stays where we put it. Nothing stays as we made it. That, too, is mercy. There are other mercies, quieter ones, rivers growing cleaner, cities filtering stormwater, boats retrieving ghost nets, communities reimagining materials so that useful does not mean forever. None of these undo what has already fallen. But the deep has never asked for undoing. It has asked only for respect, a word that means to look again. Look again, and the trench is not ruined. It is resilient, as it always has been. The plastic abyss is not an accusation. It is a message in a bottle, returned to sender, arriving 11 kilometers below with a polite, unhurried note. I received what you sent. Are you sure this is what you meant? We brighten the lights and move on. A pale ribbon of bag twists lazily in the wake, then drifts back to its ledge. A cluster of amphipods explodes from the mud and vanishes like sparks. The snow resumes, thick and gentle, wrapping even the unnatural in a natural hush. Above us, the world is busy with invention. Below, the world is busy with patience. Between them falls the weather of our time, and the deep accepts it as it accepts everything as raw material for a future we have only begun to imagine. Let your breath follow that acceptance, in and out, a little slower than before. Not because we give up, but because we are learning the pace of places that outlast us. The abyss keeps our secrets kindly, but it keeps them. And in that keeping lies our chance to change the next chapter that falls. Down here, where darkness has reigned for millions of years, sound is the only language left. Light fades after a few hundred meters, heat dwindles, color dissolves, but sound endures. It travels farther in the deep than it ever could through air, gliding through the dense water like a memory that refuses to fade. You might think of the abyss as silent, but the ocean is never truly still. Its quiet is alive with low frequencies, with songs, groans, and tremors that roll across continents. The sea speaks in bass tones so deep, so slow, they can pass through the body like wind through tall grass. Here, in the blackness, the ears of the earth are always open. The first sound that reaches us is the hum of our own vessel, a low, constant vibration. It joins the deep's own chorus, distant rumbles from the shifting crust, the faint hiss of currents, the delicate clicking of crustaceans. Each echo blends into the next until it becomes impossible to tell which are ours and which belong to the sea. Water is the perfect medium for sound. It carries vibrations 4 times faster than air, its density allowing even the faintest whisper to travel for miles. A single whale's call can echo across entire oceans, bending along layers of temperature and pressure, transforming into a melody that no shore has ever heard. Here, at the bottom, those calls arrive as ghosts of themselves, distorted, stretched, beautiful. Somewhere above us, perhaps hundreds of kilometers away, a blue whale is singing. Its song descends like thunder slowed to a heartbeat, a series of pulses so low they feel more than they sound. The notes move through layers of cold and warm water, bending like light through glass. By the time they reach the trench, they are faint but unmistakable, a long, melancholy rhythm that seems to vibrate in the bones of the planet. For a moment, the abyss listens. Then, softly, it answers. The trench has its own voice, the voice of pressure. When rock moves miles below the seafloor, the sound carries upward as an infrasound tremor, too low for human ears. Instruments translate these into frequencies we can hear, deep, endless growls that pulse like the breathing of something enormous. Each quake is a syllable, each aftershock a breath. The Mariana Trench is always speaking, telling its story not in words but in rumbles. The sensors aboard the sub pick up a faint sequence, short bursts spaced apart like a drumbeat. It might be an underwater landslide, or perhaps the movement of gas escaping through vents. It might even be a whale's heartbeat echoing down from 1,000 meters above. The sea makes no distinction between life and geology. Sound binds them together. There are other voices too quieter, stranger. The snapping shrimp, no larger than a finger, can produce one of the loudest noises in the ocean by slamming its claw shut at lightning speed. The collapse of the resulting bubble creates a shockwave, a pop louder than gunfire, strong enough to stun prey. Imagine thousands of them hidden in coral shallows or deep trenches, clicking in chaotic harmony. Together, they sound like a summer rainstorm on an unseen roof. Down here, even bacteria make sound. When gases form inside the sediment, tiny bubbles rise and pop, creating a soft fizz like the breath of carbonated water. The sub's hydrophones record it as a gentle crackle, like paper folding in another room. Silence, it seems, is not the absence of noise. It is simply the space between rhythms. The deep has also learned to listen. Many creatures navigate through echo rather than sight. Some fish emit short pulses, biological sonar, to sense objects around them. Others rely on the vibrations of the water itself, their lateral lines sensitive to every tremor. To them, the trench is a constant conversation, the ripple of a distant current, the beat of another fish's fin, the faint sigh of sand shifting on the slope. In a place without light, hearing becomes seeing. A grenadier fish glides past the sub, its long tail trailing like a ribbon. It emits a low hum, imperceptible to our ears, that helps it map its surroundings. A cluster of rat-tail fish further off respond in kind, forming a chorus that rises and falls like wind through a canyon. It's not communication in words, but resonance, a shared vibration reminding each that they exist together in the same endless dark. The instruments record higher tones, now short metallic pings, followed by quick echoes. These are the voices of our own probes, bouncing signals off the sea floor to chart its shape. The return echoes paint images we cannot otherwise see. Ridges, valleys, slopes. But with each pulse, we also disturb the calm. It's a dilemma of exploration. Every act of seeing is an act of sounding, and every sound changes what it touches. Still, we listen. The hydrophones catch something unexpected, a steady, rhythmic knocking, 10 seconds apart. At first, it seems artificial, like machinery, but there is no machinery here. The sound grows louder, then fades. Scientists once recorded a similar pattern in these waters and named it the bloop. It was never fully explained. Some said it was ice fracturing in polar seas. Others that it was the moan of a massive animal never seen. Whatever the truth, the deep keeps its mysteries well. Outside, a shadow moves past the lights, too fast to capture. The sonar flares and then goes quiet. The sound of its passage lingers, a Doppler sigh that fades into the black. In a realm where vision fails, presence is known by what it disturbs. Every creature here, every current, every tremor leaves an echo that travels forever. The abyss is not empty, it is full of memory. Perhaps the deep is the earth's ear, listening to itself. Each earthquake a heartbeat, each whale song a prayer, each bubble of gas an exhalation from the crust. And we, drifting in our fragile vessel, are a brief note in that eternal composition. The pilot turns off the floodlights for a moment. The darkness presses in, vast and soft. Without sight, the mind begins to hear more clearly. There's the creak of the hull, the faint murmur of instruments, and underneath it all, a deep, continuous tone, the sound of the ocean itself. It hums at around 10 hertz, a frequency that can be felt rather than heard. Close your eyes. You can sense it too. It is the same tone that whales follow when they migrate, the same vibration that guides ships through fog. It is the ocean's heartbeat, the background hum of the planet. We switch the lights back on. The sound fades, swallowed by our own return to vision. But the memory of it lingers in the chest, a resonance that feels like calm. Sound without light is the ocean's gift to the sleepless. It reminds us that even in darkness, there are ways to connect, to navigate, to know that we belong to something vast and alive. Above us, the world is loud with engines and speech. Down here, everything whispers, and yet nothing is lost. Every vibration finds its echo, so breathe softly now and listen. The trench is not silent. It is singing. The ocean does not need sky to make weather. It makes its own. Beneath the weight of miles of water, where sunlight cannot enter and wind has never touched, the deep still moves. It breathes, it flows, it circulates slowly, invisibly, endlessly. The abyss has its own storms, its own rivers, its own seasons. They unfold not in hours or days, but in centuries. We call them abyssal currents, though that phrase barely conveys their grace. Imagine wind made of water, flowing through canyons carved by pressure and time. These currents are cold beyond measure, some only a fraction of a degree above freezing, but they are the veins of the planet, carrying oxygen, nutrients, and memory from one ocean to another. Here in the Mariana Trench, the sea's weather is quiet but powerful. We can see it only in hints. Silt lifting in thin veils, particles drifting sideways instead of down, ribbons of clear water weaving through darker clouds. Every motion tells a story written in density and temperature, where a fraction of a degree determines the path of an entire current. The submersible drifts along one of these invisible rivers now. The instruments show a slow, steady flow, less than half a knot. It feels like stillness, but it's movement enough to sculpt the world. This current began thousands of kilometers away, near the Antarctic coast, where cold, salty water sinks to the bottom and starts its long pilgrimage northward. It has traveled through basins, across ridges, beneath continents, and now, after centuries, it passes here older than any human memory, carrying the chill breath of polar nights. This river in darkness touches every ocean. Scientists call it the global thermohaline circulation, but poets might call it the planet's bloodstream. It's the hidden pattern that connects all seas, balancing the heat of the world. When warm surface waters cool and sink, they form deep currents that move with deliberate patience. Some loops take 1,000 years to close, a single pulse of planetary respiration. Even within the trench, smaller flows curl and eddy. Water squeezed between its steep walls forms density, cascades, cold waterfalls of brine that spill down slopes, dragging sediment and whispers of chemistry behind them. In the sub's lights, you can see them faintly, ghostly plumes tumbling downward like smoke reversed, flowing not through air but through heavier water. Where these undercurrents meet, they create turbulence invisible to the eye. Tiny vortices twist and vanish. Threads of warm and cold water intertwine. Each swirl stirs the seafloor, lifting grains that may have slept for centuries. Over time, these invisible storms carve channels, move sand, and rearrange history. The deep's weather is sculptural. Its storms make no sound, but their fingerprints are everywhere. Sometimes, entire rivers of brine flow within the sea, a phenomenon so strange it seems mythic. These brine pools form when salt-rich water seeps from the crust and settles in depressions denser than the ocean above. They look like liquid mercury, shimmering under the sub's light. The surface ripples, though there is no wind. The border between the brine and the surrounding water bends light like glass, creating the illusion of a lake beneath a lake. Creatures gather at its edges, mussels, crabs, tube worms, all feeding on the chemical bounty leaking from below. To enter the pool is to die. Its density crushes even the hardiest lungs. Yet life thrives at its borders, where poison meets purity. It's the same story the deep tells everywhere. Creation at the edge of destruction, peace found in extremes. We descend along the trench wall, where the currents are stronger. Sediment flows here like airborne dust in slow motion. Occasionally, we pass the faint scars of turbidity currents, underwater avalanches that have raced down these slopes in centuries past. When earthquakes shake the sea floor, the layers of mud collapse, rushing through the trench like liquid mountains. These rare storms travel at speeds exceeding 100 kilometers per hour, carrying silt, rock, and the bones of the sea into the deepest vaults of the world. Each avalanche lasts only minutes, but when it ends, it leaves behind deposits meters thick, blankets of history laid gently across the abyssal plain. In them are the stories of continents, translated into sediment, volcanic ash, river clay, the faint dust of civilizations, ground to atoms and sent back to sea. The deep remembers not through monuments, but through layers. Farther along, we encounter what looks like fog. The sonar shows no obstacle, yet the light dims, the water thickens, and the view ahead turns ghostly. It's a nepheloid layer, a drifting cloud of fine particles suspended by invisible turbulence. These underwater mists can stretch for hundreds of kilometers, following slopes and ridges, carrying nutrients to the creatures below. The layer glows faintly in the lamps, like twilight fog rolling across an unseen valley. This is the deep's weather made visible, a haze of memory in slow motion. In some places, the water here grows so calm, it seems to stop moving altogether. Scientists once thought these still zones were lifeless, but even in stagnation, microcurrents flow. Heat from the Earth's core rises through the crust, creating thermochemical convection, stirring the sediment from below. What looks still is simply slow, beyond our ability to notice. If you could speed time 1,000-fold, you would see the trench alive with motion currents folding and unfurling like silk, streams of cold brine cascading into the abyss, storms of dust spinning briefly before sinking again. The sea never sleeps, it only slows. Pressure itself is a kind of weather here. It doesn't gust or swirl, but it shapes everything it touches. Each movement of the sub feels like wading through stone made liquid. The instruments hum softly, measuring infinitesimal changes. A tenth of a degree shift in temperature, a trace of methane, a faint rise in salinity. To the deep, these are seasons, the difference between calm and storm, between hunger and feast. When the trench warms by even a fraction of a degree, new currents awaken. When it cools, they die. The entire system breathes in rhythms longer than empires. In 2023, scientists dropped an array of hydrophones and sensors into this very trench to record its living weather. They detected faint pulses, repeating every 12 hours the heartbeat of tides, tugged by the moon. Even here, 11 kilometers below, lunar gravity moves the water by centimeters. The tide breathes across the trench twice each day, stirring dust, shifting flows, reminding the abyss that it belongs to the same celestial rhythm as the surface. The moonlight may never reach the deep, but its pull does. You sit in the dim glow of the control panel, listening to the soft hiss of the current against the hull. It's strange to think that this whisper is older than language, older even than the continents themselves. The deep's own weather has sculpted Earth for eons, carrying warmth, redistributing life, erasing boundaries. It is unseen, unhurried, and unending. Perhaps the trench is not a graveyard, but a lung, the slow inhale and exhale of a living planet. The instruments flicker one last time before recalibrating, the flow steady again. The pilot turns off the thrusters, and for a moment, the sub simply drifts weightless, effortless, surrendered to the current. If you listen carefully, you can hear the rhythm of the ocean's breath moving past the hull, slow, gentle, eternal. Let your own breathing follow it. Let it quiet everything above, because even here, in the still heart of the world, the weather never truly stops. It just learns to move at the speed of forever. The trench deepens until it begins to feel less like a place and more like an experiment, as if the laws of the universe are being tested here, stretched until they nearly break. Every meter downward brings us closer to the limits of matter, where temperature, pressure, and time themselves seem to bend. The sensors show 10,900 meters, pressure 1,100 atmospheres, temperature 1.5 degrees Celsius. Every cubic centimeter of water outside weighs more than a ton. Inside, we float in a pocket of air, the thickness of a human arm, away from annihilation. But life, astonishingly, continues to exist. Not just to survive, but to thrive, delicate, invisible, and patient. If physics writes the rules of the universe, then biology is the art of rewriting them. The first sign of life at this depth comes as a flicker on the cameras, a faint movement in the sediment. A hadal amphipod scurries across the frame, translucent and serene. It seems weightless, but its body carries chemicals that act like scaffolds for its cells, preventing them from collapsing under the enormous pressure. These molecules, called piezolites, are tiny miracles of design molecular cushions that maintain the shape of life where it should be impossible. Nearby, the sonar picks up faint trails in the mud-curved lines, like writing. They belong to polysheet worms, creatures that live their entire existence buried in darkness. They tunnel slowly, digesting sediment grain by grain, turning geology into biology. If you could measure their metabolism, you'd find it nearly still a heartbeat every few minutes, a breath every hour. Yet in that stillness, they endure. At these depths, life redefines simplicity. Most creatures here have discarded the luxuries of color, sight, or heat. They move through the water with the elegance of equations, no wasted energy, no superfluous shape. Consider the Huddle snailfish, found at 8,000 meters and below. Its body is soft as mist, its bones nearly dissolved, its muscles filled with natural antifreeze. Its blood pressure equals the weight of the ocean. Its cells are stabilized by flexible proteins that refuse to fold under stress. It does not fight the laws of physics. It collaborates with them. To the snailfish, pressure is not punishment. It is peace. Temperature here is almost constant, a cold so stable it feels eternal. Heat moves sluggishly through the dense water, trapped and shared in infinitesimal increments. A single change of 0.1 degrees Celsius can shift entire populations of microbes, opening new chemical doors and closing others. Some bacteria exploit this balance perfectly. One group, known as barophiles, cannot live anywhere else. Bring them to the surface and they disintegrate within minutes. Their cell walls collapse as if made of glass. They need pressure the way we need air. When scientists study them in pressurized flasks, they find that their enzymes normally rigid in other life forms are loose, almost liquid. They remain active where ordinary proteins would seize up. It's as if the deep itself has taught them a gentler form of physics, one where flexibility triumphs over strength. The camera pans across a ridge where methane seeps from the rock. Tiny bubbles rise, each one smaller than a tear. Around them grow colonies of bacteria that metabolize the gas, turning invisible chemistry into visible life. White filaments wave in the current, their texture like delicate fur. These microbes form the foundation of an entire ecosystem, one powered not by light, but by molecular logic. A shrimp drifts past, blind but confident. It carries small glowing dots along its sides, symbiotic bacteria that emit faint light, perhaps to attract prey, or perhaps as a quiet conversation between species. Even here, cooperation persists. The trench is the last classroom of physics, but biology has written its own syllabus. Above the seafloor, delicate marine snow still falls. Each flake descends slower than a breath, its journey lasting months. When it lands, microbes swarm over it like gardeners, breaking it down, releasing nutrients that feed others. A single grain of sediment might host millions of bacteria, each living off the chemical echoes of another. It is a web without light, self-sustaining, circular, eternal. The abyss does not waste. Every molecule finds a role. Every death becomes food. To humans, survival means resistance. To the deep, it means equilibrium. Pressure also changes sound, light, and even time. The atomic vibrations that define color behave differently here. Red and orange wavelengths vanish almost instantly, leaving only blue and black. Even light from the sub's lamp scatters oddly, as if reluctant to travel. The images on our screens look warped, curved by invisible weight. If we could hear frequencies this low, the ocean would sound like a cathedral organ, deep notes stretching across miles. Each ping of the sonar vibrates through the hull like a voice from the beginning of time. This is what the world sounded like before there was anything to see. The physics of the deep is unforgiving, yet full of paradoxes. For instance, pressure should slow chemical reactions, yet many occur faster here. accelerated by minerals in the sediment that act as catalysts. Simple compounds, methane, ammonia, sulfur, combine into organic molecules spontaneously. In laboratory simulations, scientists have replicated these conditions and watched amino acids form from inorganic soup. It's possible that life on Earth began this way, deep within a trench, much like this one. Maybe the first heartbeat wasn't a sound at all, but a reaction, two molecules meeting under pressure, exchanging energy, creating the first flicker of self-awareness. If so, then every creature here is a living fossil of that moment, proof that existence itself was forged under constraint. There's a lesson in this physics. What we call extreme is simply where our imagination ends. The trench shows that boundaries are invitations. The deeper you go, the more the impossible rearranges itself into fact. Even at these depths, scientists have detected viruses preying on bacteria, chemical gradients, driving microcurrents, and traced DNA from species yet to be identified. Every cubic meter of water here contains stories billions of years in the making. We are not looking at the edge of life. We are looking at its beginning, still unfolding. The sub's instruments flicker, with data temperature steady, pressure unchanging, noise minimal. We are as deep as the world allows. Outside, the camera shows drifting particles and one pale shape, perhaps a fish, perhaps a dream. Inside, silence. The pilot exhales softly. It's hard not to feel reverence here. Every rule we thought, fixed gravity, heat, biology, has bent itself into something merciful. The ocean's bottom is not the end of physics. It is its masterpiece. So breathe with it, slowly, calmly. Let your heartbeat join the rhythm of the pressure outside. Let the deep remind you, even under impossible weight, life persists. For in this place, at the edge of physics, the universe proves its gentlest truth, that everything heavy can still float, and everything silent can still sing. The descent is over. After hours of falling through darkness, we have reached the point where down no longer exists. The instruments mark 10,984 meters, the deepest place on Earth, the Challenger Deep. But there is no sense of finality here, no border, no line-dividing journey from destination. There is only stillness, vast and luminous in its quiet. The water outside has the texture of glass, nothing stirs. Even the marine snow seems to hesitate, suspended mid-fall as though time itself is waiting for you to listen. Inside the sub, every sound becomes sacred. The whisper of air through valves, the faint creak of the hull adjusting to pressure, the steady beat of your own pulse. For the first time, you feel it completely, the weight of the world, pressing not as burden but as embrace. The trench floor is soft, like dust from forgotten centuries. When the landing thrusters ease, a small cloud rises, swirls, and disappears. In the glow of the lamps, the seafloor stretches outward into infinite black, a desert made of memory. It looks untouched, but it is alive. Tiny organisms move among the grains, invisible architects turning detritus into order. Microbes feed on traces of methane. Worms the size of eyelashes dig slow labyrinths beneath the surface. Life persists here, even in this kingdom of stillness. Every flake of silt you see is a chronicle ash from volcanoes, shells from plankton, dust from mountains half a world away. What falls from the surface becomes the floor of the world. What dies above becomes foundation below. Here, creation and decay are the same gesture. You turn off the external lights. Instantly, the darkness swallows everything. The mind protests at first, searching for edges, but then the eyes adjust to nothingness. You can feel the deep rather than see it. The blackness is not empty. It is complete. You listen. There are no echoes, no current, only the faint thrum of your heartbeat echoing through metal. And slowly, something extraordinary happens. The silence begins to pulse. It's not sound exactly, it's a vibration, a sensation, the feeling that everything around you is gently, imperceptibly moving. It is the ocean's internal rhythm, the quiet respiration of water and stone, gravity and heat. The entire planet is breathing, and you are inside its chest. The temperature here is nearly constant, around 1.4 degrees Celsius. The pressure, impossible. Yet within those conditions, balance reigns. The water is so dense it moves like silk, so uniform that turbulence cannot survive. This is the world's point of equilibrium, where chaos surrenders to calm. Scientists call it isothermal, but words like that fail to capture what it feels like. It's not cold, it's eternal. You could drift here for 1,000 years and nothing would change. Even decay slows to a kind of meditation. Wood, bones, metal, all of it persists for centuries. The deep is the planet's memory palace, preserving the outlines of everything it swallows. Nothing truly disappears here. It only transforms so slowly that transformation looks like peace. You begin to realize that this is not merely the bottom of the sea, it is the still heart of the earth. Above us are layers of movement. The tides, the storms, the winds, the clouds, the chaos of continents. But here, motion ends. The deep holds the world's noise, the way a hand holds water, firmly, quietly, without spilling. Maybe that is the purpose of depth, to remind existence to rest. Every living thing needs a heart, a place where energy pauses to gather before flowing again. The trench is that organ for the planet. It receives, it contains, it forgives. In the faint glow of the cabin, instruments continue to blink. Pressure steady, oxygen stable, data transmitting. The digital readouts look strangely, human green numbers breathing like tiny lungs. They are proof that even in this infinite stillness, we remain connected to everything above. Signals travel upward through miles of dark water, carrying temperature readings, chemical samples, coordinates. Each byte is a whisper rising toward satellites, then to hands waiting on the surface. Even here, in absolute isolation, communication persists. The ocean allows distance, not separation. The pilot says nothing. There is nothing left to say. You both watch as a small amphipod drifts across the viewport, glowing faintly blue. It pauses, turns, and vanishes into shadow. For a moment, it feels like the deep itself has winked, acknowledging your presence, blessing it, then continuing its eternal dream. It's easy to believe that nothing is awake down here, but the truth is subtler. Everything is awake. It just doesn't hurry. Time itself sleeps slowly in the deep. The instruments hum softly. The sub-rocks once, then stills. In that motionless pause, the mind begins to drift outward, like a tide receding from the shore of thought. You feel weightless, borderless. You imagine looking up through 10 kilometers of water, layers of darkness giving way to twilight, then to blue, then to the bright shimmer of sunlight on the surface. Every layer is a version of you, moving from shadow into light, from gravity into grace. You realize that the descent was never about reaching the bottom, but about learning how to rest within vastness. Perhaps that's why explorers cry when they return from these depths. Not from fear, but from recognition. Because the trench mirrors something inside us, a still point beneath the turbulence of thought, where everything that once felt heavy finally becomes light. When we descend into the deep, we are visiting ourselves, the ocean's heart and our own pulse in unison. The same rhythm that moves the tides moves blood. The same silence that holds the world holds us. You understand suddenly why so many ancient myths said the sea remembers. It does. It remembers that life began in its arms, and it remembers that everything, eventually, returns. The clock on the console ticks softly. The data log marks time, but time has lost meaning. You are surrounded by eternity disguised as water. The pilot touches a switch, and the ballast begins to release. The sub rises, slowly, quietly, leaving the seafloor behind. Sediment curls upward, swirling like smoke, and then settles again. Within minutes, there is no trace that you were ever here. The deep erases footprints with infinite tenderness. Above, the ascent begins a return to light, to color, to noise. But the stillness follows you. As the sub climbs, you look back one last time through the viewport. The seafloor is gone, swallowed by distance. All that remains is the memory of quiet, so deep it seems, to echo forever. You whisper a thank you, though you know the deep does not need gratitude. It only needs to be remembered. The still heart of the ocean continues to beat, unseen and unhurried, beneath storms and ships and lives that will never know its name. It does not rise. It does not fall. It simply holds. And maybe that is what eternity feels like. Not endlessness, but balance. The kind of peace that presses in from all sides, reminding you that you are exactly where you belong. So when you close your eyes tonight, imagine that place, the trench, the silence, the breath of the earth itself, and let it hold you the way the ocean holds its secrets. Let the weight of your day settle like silt, slowly, gently, until all that remains is calm. Because somewhere far below, the still heart of the ocean is beating, and it beats for you too.